Some flowers are content to wish their lives away. Some may rise and some may fall, but only you may ever see me true. So only you can tell that this is who I am. This is who I am. And you know me like a river knows how to flow. My body is the story you are always told. The sun may rise, the sun may fall, but only you may ever see me true. So only you can tell that this is who I am. This is who I am. And the white horses seems I've exhausted those fickle games I play. See my good fortune meet. Only you may ever see me true. So only you can tell them this is who I am. 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 No lie, I'm no less. This is who I am. This is who I am. Sunrise to sunset. This is who I am.
Hey Spotifyers, click or tap the banner to listen to Pumped Pop, the best up-tempo pop for your workout. Brought to you by Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant, for those with a taste for taste.
Hey Spotifyers, click or tap the banner to listen to Lo-Fi Beats. Chill beats, lo-fi vibes, new tracks every week. Brought to you by Windows 11. Study and play all in one.
Did you hear?
I'm listening.
Foundeo Orforglipron is now approved.
Really?
Yes, really. Foundeo is now approved. Talk to your doctor about a new once-daily pill from Lilly. No insurance? Foundeo is available through Lilly Direct for $149 a month. Visit LillyDirect.com for full terms and conditions. Click the banner to see indication and safety summary with warnings, or visit foundeo.lilly.com/risk.
You've got better things to do this summer than deal with old appliances. That's why right now at Lowe's, you can still get in on Memorial Day savings and get up to 45% off select major appliances. Plus, get up to an additional 25% off when you bundle select major appliances. It's time to upgrade what's outdated. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 6/3. While supplies last, selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for more details.
life I've been holding on. It's been crazy, but still I'm stronger. Stronger. All my life I've been holding on. It's been crazy, but still I'm stronger. Stronger. Surely I will figure this out one day. How long should I pray for change? I realize God has his hands on my life. All I have to do is try. Fought through the wire, walked through the fire. They try bring me low, I swear I'll go higher. All my life I've been holding on. It's been crazy, but still I'm stronger. Stronger. All my life I've been holding on. It's been crazy, but still I'm stronger. Stronger. If I was not meant to fly, you wouldn't have made the sky. I walk blind in faith, even when I had lost my way. 'Cause you never make mistakes. Fought through the wire, walked through the fire. They try bring me low, I swear I'll go higher. Higher. All my life I've been holding on. It's been crazy, but still I'm stronger. Stronger. All my life I've been holding on. It's been crazy, but still I'm stronger.
Okay, fuck it. Let's just go live. First of all, let me explain what happened. Also, it is Caitlin's birthday, everyone. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to Caitlin. First of Pride Month and Caitlin's birthday. Happy Pride, everyone. Happy birthday, Caitlin. Okay, let me tell you what happened. So, the other day, I woke up and it said, your Spotify account has been changed. And I've been using Apple Music more. And I was like, wait, what? What's going on? And I looked at my account and somebody had changed it to a family account and added 6 people onto it. So it was myself. Okay, hold on. I took a picture of this. It was myself and then Hector, Clara, Carlos, Fernando, and Laura. All of us on a family plan. I guess I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children that I did not know that I had until they were added to my family Spotify account. So thank you. Thank you so much. Did you ever find your kitchen set up cables? Not yet. Thank you very much for the congratulations that are in order. So I went and canceled my subscription, and I guess I didn't realize this was like 2 days ago. I guess I didn't realize that it would give me ads. So that's what happened. How could you forget about your son, Fernando? I know. What's wrong with me? So thank you for all the subscriptions to help your hashtag brokey streamer. You had to listen to some ads on. Just Tito, thank you for the 14. Hannah, thank you for the 19. Dune, thank you for the 41. Only you can prevent the next ad break. Alex, thank you for the 11 months. El Hawkeye, thank you for the 40 months. Imagine somebody subscribing to not get ads on Twitch and then getting Spotify ads. And they're like, oh, okay. El Hawkeye, thank you for the 40 months. Paul, thank you for the 33. Sticky Punch, thank you for the 7 months. Rambling Ambrose, thank you for the 8 months. Apricot, thank you for the 43. Yeah. Fernando, the Cuban kid from Will's baseball blindside program. Yeah, I am a mother of... I am a mother now. A mother. So I guess I'll be in my mother era. I'll be making mother content. Caroline trying to give us the current Pride experience by blasting ads. That's right, especially as a lot of these companies aren't even pretending to be like fake woke anymore. During Pride Month, I don't want you to be missing out on ads. So I brought them to you to make sure that you got the full Pride Month experience. What color is this? That can't be, that's someone who's dead. This cannot be real. That's how, you cannot be alive. Sid Rosenberg encourages the Jewish community to be proud and not to hide your yarmulkes. First of all, this guy's not even wearing a yarmulke because his head is purple. It's plum.
Who goes to school in Chelsea? It's not. My advice is
he's beet color. Wait, yeah, he looks like a character out of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Be strong. I don't like it when I see.
Wait, I genuinely don't understand. Did he put body paint on? Or is this man like, is he spending every minute in the tanning bed? Somehow he has consumed so many rays that he is now the human form of skin cancer.
Jewish people, moms and dads, they tell their kids, you can take your yarmulke off. Take it off. If you're nervous to walk in the streets, take your yarmulke off.
How can anybody even be listening to what he's saying, which is crazy, by the way, when he looks like this?
Stand that. Or hide your mug in W.
He's the color of my shirt.
You do that, they win. They'd almost rather see that than a dead body in the street of Tel Aviv. Trust me, okay? Don't do that. Don't tell your kids. I know you're a parent. You're nervous. I'm nervous. I'm nervous too, okay? I've got a son who goes to school in Chelsea.
Are you nervous because the color of your skin is not human?
It's not easy. And my daughter just came back from London. You want to talk about a rough place for 3 years. But when you do that, you're really doing a disservice to the Jewish people fighting for us in Israel, and all of you fine people.
Some weirdo right-wingers like RFKE colloidal silver because they think it's a health supplement. It turns some blue. Could be that.
The audience here today, do not.
What is this purple-ass dome? It's giving purple dome.
That. Wear your yarmulke.
You know who he looks like? He looks like in a superhero movie when the villain like accidentally, I don't know, he works in a lab or something and is exposed to radiation or some other dangerous chemical in a very large quantity, and then it turns him into it's his villain origin story, but it gives him super freak powers.
Proudly, wear your chai proudly, and show everybody that you're Jewish. And I gotta say, to quote from the great movie Goodfellas, if you get your ass kicked once in a while, so what?
Show everybody you're Jewish, says the man who is, this skin color ain't on the skin color of the spectrum of human beings. Violet, you're turning violet. He's like, show him you're Jewish. My guy, you look like you just came from a faraway planet. The spirit of Ube. I can't.
Everybody
No,
needs
I
a good ass
can't.
kicking once in a while,
I
right?
can't.
But it's okay.
No.
You'll go to bed that night a proud Jew. Don't hide the fact that you're Jewish. Flaunt it.
Like in Big Fat Liar when Paul Giamatti turns blue. It reaches a point.
My advice.
Not the color identifier. This is so ridiculous. This is so absurd. This is so fucking absurd. I wonder if that one trans woman on Twitter who's blue all the time is related to this guy. Wait, I actually recently came into contact with a tweet thread that involved the blue woman, the blue trans woman, and apparently she's like really awful about trans men. I don't know. I was seeing some of the stuff there, but yeah, I've recently become aware of the trans woman who's blue, who's very problematic as well. And I think it broke containment. And you know why it was? Okay, actually, this is why I came into contact with it, because Liv Agar had commented under Blue Woman's post, and then that's how it popped up on my thread or on my feed, and it seems as if she had a bad experience one time with a trans man and has now condemned all trans men, which I don't think we should be doing that. Blue women and purple men. Okay, happy Pride, I guess. Why do I know Sid Rosenberg? What did he used to look like? He's okay, so he's always been he's always been like this, but now it's just it's just an even more extreme color. Yeah, he's one of those guys who tans so much that he looks red, but now he's purple. I don't understand. I don't understand. What disease does he have? Purple? Dyspraxia. Nope, that's not it. He's known for his controversial and sarcastic humor. Really? You think that's what think that guy's got some real good sarcastic humor? Or do you think he's just a fucking racist? Inflammatory television commentary. Rosenberg frequently made inflammatory remarks on the Imus show, which was simulcast on MSNBC cable television. Among other things, he said on air that Venus Williams was an animal, that she and Serena Williams would be better suited for National Geographic magazine than for Playboy. He also said that F-slurs play tennis. Is that true? And that the U.S. women's national soccer team were a bunch of juiced up D-words. Rosenberg was fired from the Imus show after making crude remarks about Australian singer Kylie Minogue's breast cancer diagnosis. I'm surprised he was not murdered by a group of gays for saying what he said about, like, they would be more likely to kill him over the remarks he made regarding Kylie Minogue's breast cancer than when he said F-slurs play tennis. Chris Carlin replaced Rosenberg, though Rosenberg continued to call in as a substitute sportscaster. He reported on Rutgers University. Why is Rutgers always at the scene of the crime? Seriously. He reported on Rutgers' loss. Okay. He made his... Wait, what a fucking loser. He made his first trip to Israel in January 2024 in response to the October 7th attacks. This fucking guy. Who the fuck has anything negative to say about Kylie? A man who is this color. That's who. It really does get to a point. happening? But we're about to have people who can fill out all the colors on the rainbow here. White people just really don't want to be white. This is so funny. This is a nightmare. See you later. See you later. Another pic of the guy. Straight up, I don't understand. He is fully the color of my shirt. I don't understand.
A few weeks ago, the White House quietly released an updated national counterterrorism strategy, which says, "Our national counterterrorism activities will prioritize the rapid identification and neutralization of violent secular political groups whose ideology is anti-American, radically pro-transgender, and anarchist, and compares these groups to drug cartels." So this Pride Month is about everyone getting radically more pro-trans.
Sorry, but that movie's already been done, and it's called Amelia Perez.
Gender right now. This Pride Month is not about vague corporate brand activations that equate queerness to eating French fries with ice cream. This Pride Month is not about bi-vestigating celebrities' sexual histories. And this Pride is not about bootlicking establishment politicians who will celebrate queers in the US but accept money to kill them in Palestine. Are you a cis straight dude who's cool with queer people but stays quiet when your friends make jokes about trans women? Or a girl who doesn't want to kill the vibe when your boyfriend mocks gay people? Not this month. Radically pro-transgender. Are you a cisgender gay person who wants to separate the LGB from the T because they're dragging us down? Nope. Get radically pro-transgender or get the fuck out. It is time for us all to get, say it with me now, radically pro-transgender.
Yes.
Wake it up.
Yup. Say it louder for the haters in the back. Exactly. Namchi, thank you for the 27. Bricky, thank you for the 3. Now more than ever, especially this Pride Month, when we talk about allyship, that extends as well to members of the queer community who are not trans. And being queer but not being trans doesn't mean that you get a pass for not including your trans siblings. Pride is for everybody. LGBTQ, IA, everyone. It does not mean minus the T, minus anyone, any group who you think is causing problems, because guess what? When you are marginalized, when you do not fall into the very rigid box of heteronormativity, you are also a target, whether or not you think that is the case and whether or not you are currently the biggest target. And make no mistake that people, that the conservative right, that transphobes who are currently targeting the trans community because they see that they are an easy target, they do not accept people, anybody who does not fit into these rigid standards. So this is very stupid thinking if you are queer, thinking that that it serves your protection to be anti-trans. It does not. It does not. I haven't read this piece yet, but I'm very interested to read it. It's very long, so I don't think I'm going to read it right now because I think I'd rather read it and then have a discussion. But I saw this pop up on Twitter and thought this seemed very interesting and worthwhile. Tara Knight, who is a trans writer, wrote a piece on Substack titled "Queer Culture Has a Woman Face Problem. The queer scene loves the costume more than the woman who cannot take it off." A note before I begin, this is not about ballroom. Ballroom is its own world built by Black and Latina trans women and queens as survival and family and art, and it deserves its own essay written with its own care. That essay is coming. What follows concerns something different, and I will be clear later about where the line falls. Hold that thought till I reach it. I will also not be addressing trans women who love drag. This is an entirely separate question, which will have me showing off a new project early. The community loves drag more than trans women. I'm just going to read the beginning here. The first queer event I ever attended was a drag show, and someone brought me to it. Who that someone was is a story for another day, a story with its own bruises, and I'm leaving it out of this one. What matters here is where I was standing in my own life. I was a year into estrogen, newly arrived in a city where nobody knew my history, still learning the coordinates of a self I'd only just decided I was permitted to have. I sat in a dark bar that smelled of spilled well drinks and somebody's vape, my body still adjusting to its own new chemistry, and I watched a man turn into a broad parody of the very thing I was in the earliest and most unsteady stages of becoming. The crowd around me adored him for it. I clapped along with them. The whole time, something settled in my chest and stayed there, a swallowed stone that was not quite hurt and not quite anger and not quite anything I could yet name, because I was 12 months into a language I was still assembling. Nope, I'm out. Oh, I don't know who this person is, so... Tara Knight is incredibly transphobic towards trans men and ableist. Oh, okay. First of all, let me say I did not know anything about this person until literally as I was getting out of the car and perusing Twitter, and I saw this pop up and someone that I know said, "Ooh, I want to read this piece because this is something I've been trying to put my thoughts on." And I went, "Oh, that's something that I haven't considered is this issue of community loving drag more than trans women." So if this is somebody who is also exclusive, then I don't know if then we can extract value. I know you don't. Sorry. When you said, "Nope, I'm out," it felt like you thought I was promoting this person who I am not aware of. This is why also I usually, you know what? This is usually why I like to read things before I talk about it. Why the fuck are so many people against trans women? Like, cis people hate us and then trans people hate us. What the fuck? I don't know. I don't fucking know. It's they're just there's a lot of cracks in allyship, and it is frustrating when you have somebody who, I haven't read this piece as I said, but if there's a point being made in here that's valuable, how can you be making this point while still continuing to be exclusionary? You know what? This is also why, like, I just feel so frustrated lately. It feels as if everywhere I turn, people who are marginalized and those also who are on the left, who are fighting against the powers that perpetuate marginalization, there's just so many cracks. There's so many fucking cracks. I'm curious about what point she's trying to make. Yeah, this is super, super long. So I was just going to read the beginning to see if there, was enough nuggets in there to get a sense. But I just don't understand how you are a trans woman and continue to exclude trans men. This might be a good article. I don't know. I haven't read it, but yeah. It was, I think it was another trans person I follow or that I know who had shared it, was like, "Oh, this is something that I've been musing on, but didn't know how to explain it." There definitely is more love for drag from gays than trans, but so far this reads like this person just misunderstood the point of drag. I don't think this is the way to start a critique of the problem. Well, maybe in my off time, I'll read it and see if there's anything that pops up in it that, yeah, this writer is obviously problematic herself, but if there's something in there that is worthwhile exploring, I don't know. I think she hates drag and thinks it's parroting non-passing trans femmes. That's what I was getting. Is this, I mean, this is so... I think I saw it and went, this is not something I've considered. So I'd be interested in taking a look at the argument being made here. I don't know. I think there's a trans woman pink pilling thing going around. Sorry again for the bad wording. Caroline was 100% sure you had no idea she was transphobic towards trans men. You've always been and continue to be an incredible ally. No. You're all good. And thank you for letting me know. Man, it's very disappointing. It's very disappointing to constantly run into this, you know, in the same way that it's like prominent anti-Israel, pro-Palestine people who I see being transphobic. Or people who are so good on one issue and then turn around and are so terrible on another. Like, how are we not understanding true solidarity and all the intersections? And how do I see so much misogyny? How am I seeing so many leftists continue to... It's so tiresome. It's so tiresome. Oh my God. Like, I am very tired too of how no matter how many times I talk about this, and I know I'm just one person, whatever, but I don't see any changes in this issue of people making jokes, which aren't actually really jokes because it is a true belief that is being expressed through the form of a joke, where heterosexual men who are deeply, deeply misogynistic because we live in a patriarchal society, that they call them all gay. That it's like, oh, you just want to suck dick. Oh, that it couldn't be possible that straight men are misogynistic. What are we doing here? Why every single time when a man who maybe he is closeted, but the reality is that we live in a world that is so rigidly heteronormative and misogyny is perpetuated from there. And homophobia is linked to misogyny because of rigid gender norms. And I just can't take it anymore. This kind of shielding cis heterosexual men from blame, from like causing so much of misogyny to perpetuate or to exist in all these forms, shielding from that by being like, oh, you just want to suck a dick. Oh, you hate women because you're gay. There are a lot of straight men who view women through a purely objective lens and are deeply sexist and misogynistic, but it does not make them gay. Anyway, happy Pride. Happy Pride. There's also a difference between like homoeroticism, a difference between men who get, only view other men as valuable, as like who they want to actually form a relationship with, and view women only as a sexual vehicle and a reproductive vehicle. Tara Knight's a Brianna Wu type. Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, no. Honestly, this is why more marginalized people need to have platforms and need to have more prominence, because what ends up happening is we have a handful of folks online, and oftentimes in that handful of folks, there are ones who should not have the influence and the platform that they have. And it just really sucks to be like, damn, there are few trans influencers / trans people with a platform. And so it only amplifies how horrifically representative they are when there's so few others. A lot of far-right people just fully hate women, so they hype up men for that reason, but everyone just makes jokes about them being gay when they do that. And yes, because we still live in a conservative society. There are people who are closeted. There are people who internalize that bigotry because of the external bigoted society that is affecting them, that is not allowing them to be free. And so even with the closeted nature of people who are expressing bigotry, it is still like where that is coming from. And the conversation always just ends up being, oh, all these men are actually gay. And this misogyny online comes from the fact that they're all gay. I've seen the IHIP ladies do that. I love Jen and Pumps, but it feels like they haven't thought this one through. A lot of people do it. A lot of people do it because it's an easy joke and because it's just a popular way to insult right-wingers, to be like, oh, they just all want to, they just all want to put on eyeliner and suck a dick. And it's not to say there are not gay men who behave in misogynistic ways. Okay. Of course. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that, but it's this, it's just the way that it feels as if all of this boils down whenever there is misogyny on the internet, which is constantly, it all boils down to just all of these misogynists are closeted gay men. Happy Pride Month. Point of view, you walk into a queer country dance party and everyone is dancing in sync to Doom Chant. No, this is not real. They added the song. Why does it fit so perfectly? I know. Okay, sorry to come in super hot. I've just finished the podcast episode for Wine About It. And I literally got home after being in traffic, went live. So maybe I needed to take a little breather. William and Nair, thank you for the prime.
To Chicago,
Birds for some reason.
Alone. So was I, so asked her for a name. She smiled and looked at me. I was surprised to see that a woman like that was real into me. She said she didn't have no man, paid to give the very best she can.
this is just titled Birds for some reason.
Never would have thought she was living like that. Her words seemed so sincere. When I held her near,
We got this a whole ass story.
It felt so real to me. This girl, she had to be an angel sent from heaven just for me. She said it had no man. She loved me. She told me she was all alone. Said it don't. It had no loving me. She said just give her a bitch. 59 over the gold. She kept you lie to me. You're the family, yeah.
Dance birds. Jazz fingers. Happy message from our friends at Dimension 20 on this Pride Month.
Into Harry Potter, but also, can I say turfs? Can I say turfs? Turfs. And it is. I still maintain though that
You can and you should.
there is so much in there that resonated with a lot of us misfits. A lot
Did you drink wine at Wine About It and drive? No, I drank a
of
coffee.
us kids that wanted magic.
Thank you for your
really
concern.
believed in it, and I will never let that part go. But turfs.
Trans red turf.
Yeah.
Say it with me. Fuck turfs. Did you real see Backrooms? We have not seen Backrooms yet, but we did talk about Backrooms on the pod episode because, of course, Sam being on the episode. How could we not?
Family getting death threats.
Okay, that backfired. All right. Hold on a second. Okay. I feel like I went into the stream and did not even properly kick things off. So sorry I was late tonight. Was filming Wine About It. Ray, myself, and Sam, let me know has returned for an episode on Wine About It. So that was really fun, and it was good to do something different. So that was great. Thank you to Ray for having us on. I have a couple topics for us tonight. I do, unfortunately, we have to take a look at this whole visa situation because of what an escalation this is, and the fact that South by Southwest has put out a dismal response. And so I have to remind us all that South by Southwest, unfortunately, is now under majority ownership of Penske Media Corporation. And I have talked about Jay Penske, and I've talked about Penske Media Corporation because of Israel and all of the media publications that Penske owns, and how Jay Penske is a Zionist. And so that is what is, I believe, playing a role here. South by Southwest truly put out a pathetic response, which also is not surprising, though. And then I want to talk about Marilyn Monroe, which has to do with the fact that Marilyn Monroe has turned 100 in wherever she has now gone after death. She's 100 wherever she is. But also because Marilyn, I want to talk about things that I don't think people really know about Marilyn. The fact that Marilyn, one, was there were, I don't want to call them rumors, but there were some beliefs that Marilyn was herself queer. And not only did she, at a time when there was practically zero advocacy, and especially not of somebody of her star power, advocating for the queer community, which she was doing, but also that she was believed to possibly be bi, or wherever she fell on the sexuality spectrum that was not 100% straight, and that she had some relationships with women. But also want to tell people about Marilyn's radical politics, because Marilyn in life and in death has been known primarily as a sex symbol, as, that famous blonde actress who When people picture Marilyn, they picture the dress flying up around her, but she was so much more. And she actually had ties to communism. And if you don't know, Marilyn Monroe was being monitored by the FBI. She was very radical. So I'm excited to talk about her. And then hopefully we can get to, I got to see if I think I'll probably get a second wind as we get into talking about stuff here. But I would like to cover this Lego Utah LDS corruption scandal that has been unfolding. And I finally was taking a look at it today to talk about it on the podcast. And wow, it's wild. Oh, it's all corrupt, girl. Somehow it always comes down to the Mormon church. Mormon church at the scene of the crime. Did you see Jenny Mullen's weird-ass post about her son? I don't know who Jenny Mullen is. Jenny Mullen's bizarre Facebook post. She posted these pictures with her 12-year-old son with the caption, "Your eldest son will be the most toxic guy you ever date." Oh my God, women, stop. Women, stop. Stop doing this. Stop. Stop it. Stop with the boy mom shit. Stop with the I'm my son's first love. Stop with this weird shit. The post also featured Beyonce and Jay-Z's song "03 Bonnie and Clyde" and has since been deleted. What the fuck? Why? Jenny Mullen. Why do I know her? She's an actress. She's in Crazy Stupid. Oh, she was married to Jason Biggs, right? Yeah, she was married to Jason Biggs, and then they got divorced. Oh my God, boy moms, we got to stop. Girl dads, boy moms, no more. Stop it. Yeah. E. Ah. Ooh. Ooh. Jenny Mullen is also an outspoken advocate, supporter of Israel and has raised funds for the IDF. So that tracks. Yep. That tracks. Okay. Oh, that's cool. She posted stuff like this. Reminder to get you teenage daughter out of Gaza. You know, for somebody who is posting creepy shit like this about her own child, your eldest son will be the most toxic guy you ever date. What fucking nerve? What fucking nerve she has to post this. Get your teenage daughter out of Gaza, with the implication being that Palestinians are rapists, that Palestinian men will rape your teenage daughter. What a sick fuck. Bang Schonbaum, turn out for FIDF Shabbat. Yeah, why don't you get your teenage son out of your bed? And why don't you stop posting those photos of your teenage son with captions like that? Jenny Mullen's Substack about her sons with Jason Biggs titled, "Please stay. I want you. I need you. Oh God." She says she wants her sons to only marry women with dead mothers and calls 12-year-old girl texting her son toxic. Oh my God, this woman is terrible. 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 This is such disgusting, pick-me, misogynistic behavior. The type of woman who is viewing 12-year-old girls as her competition. That's who this kind of woman is, where she views preteen girls as her competition. Dude. Call me old-fashioned, but I only want my sons to marry women with dead mothers. I don't think that's old-fashioned. I think that is you being an astronomical freak. It's my only shot at staying relevant, of seeming useful, and of winning by comparison. Why are you in competition with your child's future partner? Why? Why are that? You are so weird. This is 10 levels beyond just being a boy mom. This is like boy mom in the most out of control form. Truly emotional incest. What the fuck? Again, same woman who posted this, event details, reminder to get you teenage daughter out of Gaza, Thursday, January 4th, 2024, to-do list. Go fuck yourself. I'm not a stay-at-home mom. I have a job, a dog, and 12 to 15 things that I'm considering buying off the real at all times. But none of that seems to matter because as a mother of sons, the red pill and the blue pill both lead to the same place, oblivion. I used to find it insane that my mother-in-law fell apart when Jason told her we were getting married. Now I understand it has nothing to do with my cat allergy or whether or not I touched her lasagna. I was eating her son straight out of the fridge without even asking for a plate. Now, why are you bringing cannibalism into it? Hello? What the fuck? Busy Phillips commented her IG post acting like it was totally normal too. Busy Phillips can be weird like that. And let me explain something to you. There is this is, okay. You know, when I talk about weird LA people who either are, you know, had a moment of fame in the industry or are wealthy, not necessarily from having been in the industry, but they're Los Angeles white people. This is what I was trying to refer to when I was talking about Spencer Pratt and the type of people who are supporting him in Los Angeles. It's hard. I've met too many people who are very fucking weird like this. I knew this woman who was one of these Calabasas rich ladies, and she taught her daughter to call people ugly bitches. This Calabasas rich woman who was laughing about the fact that her daughter, who's 3 or 4 years old, got in trouble at school because she was calling her classmates ugly bitches. And this woman thought it was so funny because her daughter got that from her. Her daughter learned that from her. Oh my God, they are cryptid subtype. Yeah, these people are a specific form of nasty and really fucking creepy and weird and abnormal. Okay. Not long ago, last week, I couldn't even go to the bathroom without my kids following. They still need me to fall asleep, go to school, interpret the world, cut it up into small digestible bites, and spoon feed it to them before 7:15 a.m. each morning. We have a shorthand, a longhand, and a second language that Jason still luckily doesn't understand. But these baby remoras, these emotional vampires, the most emotionally high maintenance men I've ever dated, are growing up. Why are you talking about your sons in the context of dating them? And eventually I will lose them. No, man, it's called growing up. It's called your sons are going to grow up and be living their individual lives. You're not losing them because they are going to be going forth into this world and forging their own paths. And there is a difference between parents who feel like the empty nest feeling, the emotions that come from your kids no longer being kids. That's not the same thing as Jenny Mullen being like, I might my son's girlfriend. And I'm going to lose my son to a woman who's my competition. That's freak ass shit. That's emotional incest. When I was young, I was every mother's nightmare. I dismantled boys by accident. I destroyed their lives, wrote about it extensively, then got personally offended when they no longer wanted to be my friend. Oh, so she's been a nightmare forever. I said I love you when I didn't mean it. I sometimes kissed people just to make them go away. I've never been broken up with. I've never been into someone who wasn't just slightly more into me. But now karma is going to make me pay in spades. Most likely in the form of some crazy bitch who's going to weaponize my flaws in therapy and melt all my jewelry. Her mom will be the one to watch the grandkids and join them for family vacations. I'll be the lonely old woman wandering the Grove on Fairfax, waiting for my 5 p.m. table for one at the fucking Marmalade Cafe. Oh my God. She needs to do like, get this woman on a, this will either go one way or another. If she were to do a hero's dose of mushrooms and has a complete ego death, maybe that would knock some sense into her head, or maybe it would only make this person even worse. Several months ago, my eldest was texting with a girl. She was 12, but I could already tell my brand of toxic. She was bossing him around and using big words, and he was utterly spun. I like the idea that a girl who's 12 using big words is a toxic girl. God, there are just so many fucking issues here. Sorry, your son's a, like, is she actually using big words, or is your son a dumbass? I complained to Jason that I wanted to intervene before he got hurt and that she wasn't even hotter than me. You're talking about a 12-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 12-year-old. That she wasn't even hotter than me. You guys, this is one of those fucked up things I have read in a minute. What the fuck? Biodrummer, thank you. Hogan, thank you for the gifted. What? This is so cooked. This is what we mean by the patriarchy does not work without women holding up the pillars of a patriarchal society. Women like this fucking freak who is talking about a 12-year-old girl in these terms. She posted this on her Substack. But Jason insisted I let him make his own mistakes, and objectively, he's right. But as a mother, you want to shield and protect and fiercely defend the thing you've devoted your life to shaping. There's so much anticipatory grief wrapped into motherhood. It will trigger even the most well-adjusted of women. But the abandonment we eventually endure as boy moms, stop calling yourself boy moms, is uniquely cruel because it begins as worship. They arrive obsessed, dependent, adoring. They think we're magic. We think we are magic. See, these are the type of women who treat their daughters very cruelly, who make it very clear from when they are children that they value the boys more than the girls. When you talk about your son specifically like this, when you call yourself a boy mom, you're not a mom, you're a boy mom. Because I'm not like the other moms, because I'm special, because I have a boy. We spend years being the center of their emotional world only to slowly watch them build one without us. If we do our job correctly, they leave. That's sort of the evolution of all things. And maybe that's the harder pill to swallow. Maybe the tragedy of sons is also the gift, the temporary delusion that you can be all things to another person, that there is no competition for their love, no caveats to their devotion. Today, there's still little. They still crawl into my sweaters and into my sheets. They still need me to open milk cartons and operate on invisible injuries. I'm still in it, but also somehow outside of it. Fully aware I am living through the longest goodbye of my life. Stop. Are you ready for this last sentence? I pray that at least one of them is gay. Wow. Praying. Yeah, as if she would not be homophobic as well. Because somebody who is this misogynistic as Jenny Molin is absolutely fucking homophobic as well. Okay. All right. She's the type of person who would probably be like, oh my God, I love the gays. I love the gays, but is still homophobic and is absolutely transphobic as well. I pray that at least one of my sons is gay so that I don't have to compete with his girlfriends and possible and future wife. So hopefully my son is gay so I don't have to compete with other women because I'm dating my son. If anyone's going to date if any woman's going to date my son, it's going to be me. And if it's not me, it's because I'm dead. It started off as someone sharing this link. Yes. Yeah. Which is so fucking weird. This has done psychic damage to me. You know, for all of the imperfections that my own mother has, man, am I so glad that she is not this mom, this type of mom, that she's not this type of woman. Holy shit. That last line really resonates for me. Oh, the last line where she says, I pray that at least one of them is gay. That really resonates with you, Morgan, because you also feel the same way. You also feel like you're in competition with other women for your son's affection and that you're dating your son because he's your son. Love this and you. You are magic. Only paid subscribers can comment on this post. Never mind. I was about to drop some words. I was about to talk some real shit. This oh my God. This is unexpected. I did not expect to learn this about Jenny Molin, who is Jason Biggs' ex, and a profoundly insane person. And I'm not going to lie, every time it makes sense that they're also a deranged Zionist. That, of course, you are a deranged Zionist. This article during first day of Pride Month is homophobic. Holy shit. Lazy, psychoanalytic, self-centering, long-form epic disaster poetry from a narcissistic mom. It is a great sadness and perpetual source of anger for me that there are so many women who are deeply misogynistic. And look, I get it because you are raised in a world that conditions you this way, but do the fucking work. Come on. Do the goddamn work to unpack, to dismantle your misogyny. Like, question why you view yourself in competition with women to begin with. Women who view themselves in competition with other women. Let's unpack that. And then secondly, as a mother, viewing yourself in competition with 12-year-old girls. Palestine is horrible for women. Also, I don't want my son around girls. Yes. The same woman who will say, I support war in Iran. I support everything Israel's doing because they're actually liberating women, is the same woman to talk shit about a 12-year-old girl because she's jealous of her. Maybe she unpacks the incest first. Well, it's related. Please use my sub money to comment on this post. I can't even. No, this is one of them that I'm just going to have my editor cut something out of this, or I'm going to make a TikTok and be like, hey, Jenny. Hey. I think you're a fucking freak. I think you're real weird. I think you're real creepy. Real creepy. And I notice that you are saying one thing about how Palestinian men treat girls and women, insinuating that they are rapists, all of them, while on your Substack post talking about how you're dating your son. You're a fucking freak. You are deranged beyond belief. My God. The sons of these people either grow up to be the most evil men you know or never have contact with their mothers again, God willing. Yes, and I know men who have had to cut off contact from their mothers because they are so toxic like this, that whenever they would have a girlfriend, bring women around, that their mothers were so jealous and just always behaving inappropriately. Yeah, very, very manipulative. Very manipulative. That's what hurts me the most, how this affects kids. Right. Where these boys raised by mothers like this, then they grow up to be adults who have been raised with this superiority due to being men, and that they have mothers who are constantly reminding them that no woman is good enough except for mom. And that is not a way to raise a healthy boy in this world, to grow up and become a well-adjusted, non-piece of shit man, or on the other side, where they will cut their relationships off with their mothers because of how toxic they are. Also, mothers who protect their rapists and abusive sons a lot of the time. Yeah. This is how my mom was and kind of whole family was. Been no contact for like 5 years. Freelance Exorcist, thank you for the prime. Philip, thank you for the 2 months. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, that was real weird. I am very uncomfortable. So let's talk about, let me pull up South by Southwest's response here to Hasan Piker's and Cenk's bans. They're being blocked from going to the UK. Okay. All right. Hold on a second. Hasan Piker and Cenk Uyghur were hold on. What? Were refused entry into the UK, but Israeli officials who support the genocide in Gaza have been allowed in. Yes, of course. Both political commentators received news that their UK travel authorization was revoked, but in 2025, UK welcomed Israeli President Isaac Herzog, and that's despite Herzog's justifications for the genocide in Gaza. UK Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood claimed that Hasan and Cenk's presence in the country was not considered to be conducive to the public good. So the Home Office revoked their visas.
I already had a visa, and they apparently pulled it. They had nothing on me that is in violation of British law in any way, shape, or form. They couldn't even charge anti-Semitism. But they said my criticism of Israel is by definition anti-Semitic, and hence I must be banned. So I didn't get banned for criticizing the United Kingdom. I got banned for criticizing Israel in the United Kingdom.
Cenk said he arrived at the airport for his flight to the UK when he received news that his visa was revoked.
Ironically, they said, well, the way you criticized Israel was that you said it controls the American government. And since we're the British government, we're not allowing you to criticize Israel, so you see how we are not controlled. No, I don't see that. Actually, that's deeply ironic. It sounds like you are. And I hadn't said you, I said the American government. That's because 94% of Congress has taken contributions from the Israeli lobby. That is true.
Yeah, mind you, they got Nazi rallies going on over in the UK, similarly to here in the US, and they don't do anything about Nazis on their streets.
Israel is a fascist country, and it gets to enforce its bidding upon other countries. And in an effort to abide by the wishes of a foreign country like Israel, the Western liberal democracies that are supposed to protect and preserve speech, even if they don't have a First Amendment like we do here in the United States of America, they're supposed to have reason, like good reason. This is not one of them. This is not one of them. Being critical of Israel while effectively combating anti-Semitism is not a good enough reason to bar someone entry into the country.
Yeah, and look, this is the larger issue of censorship that we have seen increasing. We have seen an increase in laws that are actually censorship laws that are disguised as child safety protection laws, internet protection laws. And it is a rise in censorship that we have seen, not just here in the United States, but of course, you know, this is a big example in the UK. And across a lot of Europe, in Australia, we have seen these censorship laws pass, and this is part of that. So to be clear, Cenk and Hasan are targeted, especially Hasan because of how prominent he is, targeted often due to their anti-Israel speech. But this is not just specific to the issue of Israel and Palestine. This is about a rise in authoritarianism across the board. So it's not just speech that is anti-Israel that is being targeted, which I think people, for the most part, understand that this is about the larger free speech censorship issue. Okay, but wait, they banned straight men during Pride Month. The UK Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has barred controversial Twitch streamer Hasan Piker and his uncle, broadcaster Cenk Uygur, from entering the UK. The move means they will be unable to attend the South by Southwest London, where they were scheduled to be speaking. Reps for the Home Office confirmed to Variety that Piker and Uyghur's electronic travel authorization had been revoked on the grounds that their presence in the UK may not be conducive to the public good. Decisions to refuse or cancel an ETA on these grounds are based solely on an assessment of the potential risk an individual may pose to UK society. An ETA allows travelers to enter the UK without a visa for up to 6 months. The Home Office added that where applications require further consideration, individuals may choose to apply for a visa if they still wish to travel to the UK. In a statement on Twitter, Uyghur wrote, I've been banned from the UK. I tried to get on a flight to London to attend South by Southwest and give a speech at Oxford. I've been banned for criticizing Israel. Are we free anymore? This is oppression of Western citizens by our own governments on behalf of a different country. The social media personality responded to his uncle's post with his own message saying, the UK has revoked my visa as well, all at the behest of Israel. The West is betraying liberal values for a genocidal fascist foreign government. Soon we will all become Israel. I'm Israel High. Piker was due to appear at South by Southwest London on a panel titled How the American Left Learned to Speak the Internet, while Uyghur was set to speak on Techno-Feudalism is Here, Who Are the Lords? The Times of London reported Mahmoud's decision was based on Uyghur's recent exchanges with Piers Morgan, in which he made concerning comments about the UK's grooming gang scandal and that his presence would risk exacerbating anti-Semitism due to his rhetoric since the October 7th attacks in 2023. But totally fine to welcome in genocidal leaders. Totally fine. But the risk of exacerbating anti-Semitism because of prominent figures who are outspoken in criticizing Israel's actions. Well. He's also denied the genocide in Armenia and is said to have made misogynistic slurs in the past. Piker also has a history of making inflammatory statements, saying America deserved 9/11 and voicing support for prescribed terror group Hamas. Okay, so here's what South by Southwest London said. We are aware that Cenk and Hasan Piker are unable to travel to the UK following a decision by the Home Office. They will therefore not be participating in the South by Southwest London program this year. Decisions on entry to the UK are a matter for the Home Office and the individuals concerned. South by Southwest London's role is to convene a broad range of diverse voices and perspectives. We remain focused on delivering a program this week, fostering open dialogue and exchange of ideas, and featuring more than 800 speakers, artists, and screenings. Fucking cowardly bullshit. A completely cowardly response to what amounts to an act of pure censorship. This is Ash Sarkar, who is supposed to chair the discussion at South by Southwest, said, first of all, South by Southwest must facilitate a way for Cenk and Hasan to contribute remotely as a bare minimum refusal to comply with government censorship. Secondly, it's abundantly clear that the UK government has put Israel at the heart of its policy making around free expression. Whether it's proscribing Palestine Action as a terrorist group, arresting hundreds of people for holding signs supporting it, or banning Cenk and Hasan from the UK for speech acts, which would not be unlawful in this country, what we're witnessing is an authoritarian turn motivated by Labor's fear of being called anti-Semitic. I mean, remember what they did to Jeremy Corbyn. And fear of being called out for their position on the genocidal war on Gaza. The Labor government doesn't give a shit about community cohesion. Every time they ban someone, whether they're from the left or from the right, from entering the UK, they're creating resentment, suspicion, and blame, which everyone can point out, because everyone can point out an example of something from the other side who has expressed things which they find offensive, controversial, or hateful, and say this is evidence of preferential treatment. So with Cenk and Hasan having their visas revoked, what are people going to do? They're going to look at things which are absolutely true. Example, that those who served in the IDF and may have been participants in or witnesses to war crimes can travel to the UK freely. Or that the government argued for Maccabi Tel Aviv hooligans with their storied record of violence and racism to be able to come to Birmingham. Or that there are many journalists, such as our own Melanie Phillips, who can say things like, there's no such thing as the Palestinians, and happily have columns here and travel as they wish. And there's going to be a percentage of people who go way beyond saying this as the result of UK foreign policy, political short-sightedness, pro-Israel lobbying, and pervasive racism against Arabs. They'll instead offer anti-Semitic explanations blaming Jewish control of institutions. What Keir Starmer's government is doing may as well be designed to create an anti-Semitic backlash in this country, putting Jewish people of all political beliefs squarely in the frame to absorb blame and hatred for things that this government has done. You don't foster community cohesion by having the government ban people from speaking. The role for the state is to set a reasonable bar, no incitement, no libel or slander, and let the people contest ideas between themselves. Yeah, and now I think Ash has announced that she is dropping out. Yeah. I pulled out of South by Southwest London because of South by Southwest's response, where they were basically like, well, what, yeah, it's up to the home office. Sorry, we've got more important things to do. Cutie, thank you for the gifted. Having read the South by Southwest statement on Hasan and Cenk being denied entry to the UK, I'm afraid I have to withdraw my participation. If I were in their shoes, I would hope that any organization which invited me to speak and had their programming interfered with by the Home Office would have had the minimal expected integrity to offer some defense of lawful free expression and condemn government overreach. Thank you for your invitation. Yeah, that is honestly what more people should do. They need to follow suit. I know Zara Rahim, who was instrumental on Zoran's campaign. She was set to join on this panel, and she offered this rebuke. The entire premise of our panel was rooted in examining why audiences increasingly distrust institutions, gatekeepers, and traditional power structures, political discourse, and whose voices are permitted legitimacy in public life. There's an obvious irony in hosting a conference about the future of media, democracy, dissent, and political power while responding so cautiously to the banning of one of the most influential political commentators from even entering the country. I appreciate everyone's time and the work that went into putting this together, but under the circumstances, stepping away feels like the only option for me. Yeah. How the fuck do you invite Hasan to speak on this panel about the future of media, democracy, free speech, dissent in this current era? And then when he is banned from entering the country, your response is dismal. Your response is so pathetic. You might as well not even have responded. Unbelievably embarrassing.
Left-wing YouTube pundit Cenk Uygur banned from entering the UK. Yeah, it's... Okay, well, I didn't want to talk about it, but my visa has also been revoked.
Well, at least Will Neff doesn't have to fight off people asking him if he's going to go to UK, if he's going to go to London anymore. Will Neff, who hates the UK, and I believe he's looking at this now and going, well, thank God no one's going to ask me if I'm going to London anymore.
We just found out. Yes, I will not be going.
No. Sorry, that was a joke. Will has not been banned. Will's not been banned. He wishes he was banned.
As it stands currently, I don't believe that I'll be able to go to the United Kingdom this upcoming week. I don't know who to reach out for this. I was supposed to do something with Yanis Varoufakis, do something with Zach Polanski, do something with Jeremy Corbyn, do something at the Oxford Union, and now...
Also, the Labour Party has been a major force in driving this legislation that is disguised as internet safety for kids, but is actually very aggressive censorship and is restricting speech. So this is not this is not an anomaly here. This is on course with what the Labour Party has been doing concerning speech and censorship.
The Labour government has...
Oxford Union had a good statement. Let me see. From the president of the Oxford Union, Arwa El-Reyes, the Oxford Union intended to host Cenk Uygur and Hasan Piker on June 6th for a discussion and head-to-head event with our members. We are deeply concerned by the revocation of both speakers' electronic travel authorizations on the basis that their appearance would not be conducive to public good. Also, what the fuck does that mean? These events had been publicly announced for months. This 11th hour call signals much more than democratic decline. It's a direct threat to free expression. The Oxford Union was founded on one principle, that ideas are challenged through debate, not silenced by decree. We have never turned a speaker away because of their political beliefs, nor have we sought a permission slip from the state. We will not start now. This event will not be canceled. The union will ensure this discussion takes place. Free speech does not require a visa. We will update our members shortly. Free speech has not been abolished in the UK and will jail anyone who says it has been. Yeah, this is how you put out a statement. Okay. Hasan's nutritionist. Thank you for the bits. But as I mentioned, South by Southwest is majority owned now by the right-wing billionaire Penske family. They are major Trump supporters. They are Zionists. And they have taken majority ownership of South by Southwest. And that is also why we've seen South by Southwest sign deals with the military when they were doing like army ads with South by Southwest, which sucks because South by Southwest was a beloved indie festival in Austin. And then there's also other locations, like obviously in London here. And like so many institutions, independent institutions has been taken control of by right-wing billionaires. It's not a new thing. This has been ongoing, but yeah, it's a real disappointment. The decision to prevent Cenk and Hasan from speaking in the UK is alarming and demands a clear explanation from the government. So this is the Labour Muslim Network statement. Given the significant public interest surrounding the case, the government should provide a clear explanation of the basis on which this decision was made and the factors that led to the cancellation of their travel permissions. Support for Palestinian rights, criticism of the actions of the Israeli government, and advocacy for international law and human rights must never be grounds for exclusion from public debate in the United Kingdom. Muslim communities and all those who speak out on matters of human rights and international justice must have confidence that decisions of this nature are applied fairly, consistently, and transparently. Obviously, they would never in a million years do this to somebody who is a Zionist, to specifically a Jewish Zionist. And imagine if they did but they wouldn't, obviously. They would not. But in the instance that they did, this would be like, you know, every politician in the United States would be standing up. No, most of them, the Israeli supporters, would be standing up to talk about how this is a clear-cut example of anti-Semitism. Even if they were to ban a Zionist who's non-Jewish, they would still say anti-Semitism. Just one more, I'll say it again. They were arresting grannies for holding pro-Palestine signs. Yeah, people who were wearing shirts that said "from the river to the sea." If an IDF soldier came to talk about why ethnic cleansing was good, they would welcome them. Yes, and then they would also cast them on shows on HBO. Cutie, thank you for another gifted.
Revoked our visas. Go to Ireland. Okay, guys, it's not about being in the vicinity of the UK. I was supposed to do in the UK. Yeah.
Classic
a
chat.
sad state of affairs where
Classic.
obviously the interests of Israel take the highest priority. But yeah.
Just go to Ireland.
They've revoked my visa.
It's okay, King.
Well. It's a 40-minute flight is what I meant. Politicians fly over there all the time for press stuff. Dude, what are you talking about? I had like actual things to do in the UK.
Like, I can't say enough. I know that South by Southwest is just one part of it here, but obviously as somebody who loves film and film festivals, and South by Southwest is where a lot of my favorite films have premiered at, to see this once beloved iconic cultural institution be taken over by this right-wing Zionist billionaire family and totally be remade into a corporate institution is depressing as all fucking hell. It's really depressing.
It's so funny. You guys are like, dude, just swim across the canal, take a boat and enter illegally. Yeah, I'm not going to.
Also, PMC owns, they now have Rolling Stone, Variety, Billboard, Hollywood Reporter. They have bought up so many publications, which has led to, which is not just Penske that's doing this, but is an overall trend of the shrinking of editorial independence, the consolidation of media and cultural institutions into the hands of right-wing billionaires.
Do that. I'm not going to risk getting deported and not entry into the country for 10 years. Can Jeremy Corbyn do anything about it? Probably not. I mean, I don't know. Dear Hasan Doan Piker, your UK ETA has been canceled. This means you cannot travel to the UK without a visa. This is because your presence in the UK is not considered to be conducive to
the amount of editorial control they exert is getting stronger too. Yes, it's more transparent. You can see it with Washington Post. You can see it with Penske-owned media. You can see it with, obviously, CBS. Obviously, the Barry Weiss dismal takeover and destruction of 60 Minutes and CBS. But seeing how clearly the Ellisons' interests are reflected in CBS's current state, that, yeah, it is much more... It is much clearer.
Public good. You cannot appeal this decision. Apply for a visa. If you still want to travel to the UK, you need to apply for a visa so we can consider your circumstances in more detail. Having your ETA canceled does not mean you will be refused a visa.
There was someone in here saying, did Hasan get the right visa? Whoever that was, please go into his chat next time he streams and ask him that. Because I guarantee he'll see it, and I'm sure he will be very nice about it.
Nick Shirley can go, though, of course, because Nick Shirley is a dog for the fascist state. Yeah, it's sad, man. What are you going to do? The other day, someone said, watch Labor Party do this a couple days before your trip, and it happened. Yeah, I genuinely, listen, I'm going to say something. This is a warning. I hope you guys understand. The Western world and liberal democracy is a sham, and all of the supposed things that they claim to care about, they do not actually care about. We are moving into a very different timeline. This is why I constantly reiterate that fascism is here, right? Like the administration trying to deploy subpoenas against political dissidents in the United States of America, or the UK that's like completely captive to the interests of pro-Israel advocacy organizations. Like they are moving in a way, and this is the liberal government, right? The Labor government is supposed to be the liberal government doing.
I mean, look, I got to shout out Taylor Lorenz, who has been one of the singular reporters in the tech space, who has been for years trying to ring the alarm bells on all of this tech censorship and tech policy. And she's trying to get people to connect the dots, and especially on the left, explain, hey, this is not singular to Israel. I know that everyone has a lot more awareness now of Israel's power and Israel's relationship with the United States, but this is not unique to people who are expressing anti-Israel speech. This is an attack on all speech that is seen as dissident, that is seen as a problem, and those who are expressing it as a problem to the people in power. So it is why she has tried very hard to get leftists to pay attention to tech policy and to all these bills and all this legislation that is being slipped under people's noses. Legislation that is passed in Australia, in the UK, in the United States, and they're trying to push for more of it. And they are succeeding because not enough of the left is paying attention to this and connecting the dots. And a lot of other people are swayed by the moral panic language that's being employed and is very effective. And people believe that this is aimed at curtailing big tech's power, protecting kids online, when it's not, and trying to get people to understand the dire state that free speech is in, that free speech online is in, has I know been a challenge for Taylor. Taylor should probably happen. Shout out for Taylor should probably happen every stream, not just because of this, but she has her finger on the pulse of all the internet issues happening. Truly, look, you might not agree with Taylor on everything. That's fine. You might not personally like her. There are people who don't personally like me, but I would hope that they would still listen to me on issues that I know a lot on. Please read Taylor's extensive reporting on this. She has so many YouTube videos. She is like one of the number one experts at reporting on this really, really dangerous censorship. This is what happens in my state in Australia. And the other thing is that Israel supporters, which includes plenty of liberals, they see this stuff, and because they think this is just about Israel and Palestine speech, and they support Israel, so they are supporting the curtailing of free speech on from those who advocate for Palestinian liberation, they think that this is great, and they don't see how censorship will also be affecting them. That will be coming, these laws that will be affecting their ability to express their beliefs. A protest leader was arrested after explaining the meaning of "from the river to the sea." Yeah. And again, I think a lot of the attention goes to these instances that not just this is obviously the overall treatment now from Western institutions and governments towards pro-Palestine supporters, but they pay attention, or the attention is on how this is affecting pro-Palestine advocates. But there are a lot of examples of this already happening to speech that is not related to Palestine, because the rise of authoritarianism is affecting all progressive speech, all anti-fascist speech, all groups, all marginalized groups, all people, and all speech that is aimed at challenging authoritarian power.
This, and the American government is the right-wing government doing it. Like,
look what happened with the Charlie Kirk shit.
We are in the 1930s era where I think that the administrations in both the UK and the United States of America, regardless of like their supposed ideological differences, are absolutely moving as a uniparty. And things are going to get even worse from here on out. Yes, I was supposed to fly to the UK Tuesday. I was supposed to fly to the United Kingdom on Tuesday. I was supposed to speak at the Oxford Union alongside Cenk. I was supposed to speak at South by Southwest. And also
the fact that the UK now is threatening Americans with barring them from the country, arresting them, etc., for speech that they are making in America. So obviously the current government in America is in league with this, but America needs to push back on Americans being threatened, being arrested, being barred for speech that is being made in America, the country that brags about how we are the most free country in this world. And what we're seeing is this censorship regime in the UK being exported out. So this situation here is a result of the UK's growing regime aimed at curtailing speech online.
Do another interview with Yanis Varoufakis. But Jewish groups call on UK to bar dangerous Hasan Piker amid anti-Semitic attacks. And they did. Because Israel advocacy organizations...
Was this Fox News? Again, how the fuck do you say Hasan Piker and Cenk Uygur are not conducive to the public good because they could... having them in the UK could lead to a rise in anti-Semitism. And here you have Fox or whatever else saying Jewish groups call on the UK. So how are then people expected, people who are not staunchly anti-Zionist in the way that they make the difference between Judaism and Zionism, whatever, how are people expected to not then go look at this and go Jewish and conclude Jewish control, which is something that Hasan always pushes back against. So to see the pro-Israel publications here specifically say Jewish groups call on UK to bar dangerous Hasan Piker amid anti-Semitic attacks.
Have unbelievable amounts of power over what even the United Kingdom has to say and do. Yeah, if you're an avowed anti-Zionist, your travel will be restricted. It's totally ridiculous, dude. And no, this is not an opportunity for you guys to say, go to France or go to other countries, okay? It's very, very shitty. I genuinely did not think this would happen. I'll be honest. You have enough clout now to set the
Just
narrative.
go to
They
Japan,
turn you away.
dude.
The
You
UK
love
arresting its
Japan.
elderly for protesting in support of genocide wasn't enough for Keir Starmer. Now the pro-genocide Labour Party is denying entry to anti-genocide tourists. If anything, you should fly out and make it a major news event. What are you talking about, brother? No, I'm not going to... They won't put me on a flight if I don't have a visa. You don't know what you're talking about. If the Labour government is actively denying a visa that they already issued to me, because we got the visa and they revoked it, you can't get on a flight. It's not how that works.
Do they understand that Cenk went to the airport and got turned away? And that is what I think led to Hasan checking his status, because what would have happened is Hasan wouldn't have checked were Cenk not denied. So he and Marsh would have left to go fly to London and then been turned away.
Just like fly. I've been banned from the UK. I tried to get a flight.
What if he just drives there instead? Honestly, something to consider.
I tried to get on a flight from London to attend South by Southwest London and give a speech at Oxford. I've been banned for criticizing Israel. Are we free anymore? This is oppression of Western citizens by our own governments on behalf of a different country. Yeah, that's when I found out as well.
Let's not forget the recent attacks on the Jewish community started with an attack on a Muslim, then only Jewish leader of a British party. Zach Polanski was raked over the coals for pointing this out.
Wouldn't let Cenk on the flight. At least they didn't let him fly into the country and then deport him. If you can't address Oxford Union in person, can you not interact via Zoom? No, it's not the same. And I don't know what these guys are going to do anyway. Rima Hassan was refused a visa to Canada 2 months ago. Yeah, well, Canada is different because I'm an American citizen. I'm not French. So
also, what people need to understand is that this is not simply a matter of physically barring people like Hasan and Cenk from entering a country. This is related to this internet censorship regime that the UK has been advancing, that the United States has also been advancing. And when there is success in when there is success in the UK, that is affecting other states where they too are trying to push the censorship regimes, and it's impacting the other Commonwealth countries as well. Yes. So this is not just well, it's okay because you can just go online and zoom in. Well, sure, maybe that is an option here. It's not the same as he said, but also we're talking about the fact that they are actively working to keep suppressing speech online. So it's not just a matter of physically barring people from coming into countries. It is in tandem with blocking this speech, with punishing this speech online.
I mean, they might do this.
I'm in the UK and I had to prove my age to play Minecraft.
This now that the Commonwealth has established the precedent. This could also potentially limit my travels to Australia, which I was planning to go to. Weren't you let in already once under Starmer? Yes. I've been to the UK on numerous occasions, and all of the stuff that they're complaining about, I said and freely entered the country. Like all the stuff I
Marsh's
said prior,
visa revoked?
the things
I don't
that
know.
they're like complaining about were things that I had said already, and they didn't have any issues with my travel into the UK. So yeah. We've had warnings. It's just time now. Everything else has been 0 to 100. This is what we've learned. We cannot be shocked when history has been playing in front of us in lockstep. As a nation, we have been quiet and idle, which allows it. Yeah, this is straight up fascism. Israel is a fascist country, and it gets to enforce its bidding upon other countries. And in an effort to abide by the wishes of a foreign country like Israel, the Western liberal democracies that are supposed to protect and preserve speech, even if they don't have a First Amendment like we do here in the United States of America, they're supposed to have reason, like good reason. This is not one of them. This is not one of them. Being critical of Israel while effectively combating anti-Semitism is not a good enough reason to bar someone entry into the country. Ironically enough, one of my famous speeches that I delivered was at Oxford Union, which is what I was supposed to attend once again, where I warned the Western governments and I warned those who were worried about anti-Semitism that this dangerous association between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, this conflation.
Does anyone know if we have going to the UK tomorrow? Marsh.
Between Judaism and Zionism was going to create an environment where anti-Semitism would manifest. I was supposed to see you at the Varoufakis event. I'm so pissed. Well, yeah, I'm pissed too. I really was excited to go to the UK. Like I said, I was linking up with Zach Polanski, Jeremy Corbyn, Giannis Varoufakis. I was doing something at South by Southwest. I was going to be there for almost 7 days, dude. We had a week's worth of events and things to do lined up. Yeah, you're a member of the media. Attack against the free press. Oh, 100%. Left-wing YouTube pundit Cenk, we were banned from entering the UK. Turkish-American book to appear at South by Southwest London is travel authorization revoked by Shabana Mahmood after concern over comments about Israel and grooming gangs? About grooming gangs? I'm surprised that they went after Cenk too. It's very obvious that it's like, it's not even just, the fact that it's not just me. Dude, I can't believe it. I cannot believe how much motion Israel has over other countries. Like, what the Meanwhile, speaking of motion Israel has over other countries, we were just talking about Connie Chen.
Okay, and again, important to understand that Israel is cracking down on anti-Israel speech, on pro-Palestine speech, is part of the broader landscape here. So this did not begin post-October 7th when more and more people started to turn against Israel, and the public then shifted largely against supporting Israel. This has been a decades-long project by the Christian nationalist right, by the Christian authoritarian power, and this is what I'm trying to explain is taking prominence because of how prominent the issue of Israel has become. So this has been going on for a long time. A lot of speech-related arrests have been occurring in the UK, speech that's not related to Palestine, speech that is coming from queer people, for example. Queer people are being arrested, are being censored constantly. So it's important to not see this as primarily an Israel and Palestine issue, and to not see Israel as like the driver here, because this was occurring long before October 7th. But obviously yes, these governments being in line with Israel is a part of it here, but the broader landscape being that this is far right authoritarianism. Australia's terrible, but the UK is
Israel
really
is
bad.
subverting
Yes.
American democracy once again. Bezalel Smotrich is in the United States of America. Let's take a look. Israel Day Parade in New York City with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, far-right Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, and other far-right Israeli lawmakers and American politicians march on Fifth Avenue. New York City Mayor Zohar Mamdani decided to skip the event. Look at this. They're flexing on us. David Taylor demanded Kneecap be banned from Glastonbury for criticizing Israel, demanded Bob Villan be banned from Glastonbury for criticizing Israel, and is now demanding Hasan Piker be barred from entering the country for, yes, you guessed it, criticizing Israel. That's a labor guy, by the way. That's a labor guy. It's a labor government that banned me. I've literally been to the UK. So ridiculous. Liberal democracy is dead. It was already dying due to how aggressive the contradictions were becoming, how apparent they were becoming, but Israel killed it. Israel is the final blow, straight up. I appreciate Smotrich comparing the parade to Jerusalem Day Flag March. The two are interconnected after all. One is an annual Kristallnacht knock for Palestinians. The other exists to support that effort. Yep.
Yeah. According to the Times of London, criticism of Israel played a major role in the ban. The decision to block Uyghur from traveling to the UK is understood to have been based on several grounds, including fears that his presence would risk exacerbating anti-Semitism due to his rhetoric since the October 7th attacks in 2023. This is far from the first time Piker's long history of anti-Israel rhetoric stemming from Israel's ongoing apartheid and genocide of Palestinians has been conflated with anti-Semitism to further the ends of politicians. Last month, two members of the U.S. House of Reps, Democrat Josh Gottheimer and Republican Mike Lawler, introduced a bipartisan resolution condemning the rise of anti-Semitic hate-filled rhetoric. The other thing here, too, is that the groups here that are working to curtail speech and curtail all speech, mind you, but are also pro-Israel groups, there's an element here where they also like to focus on specifically the Israel speech element because of the claims of anti-Semitism, right? This is now the go-to when it concerns any criticism of Israel, the go-to being anti-Semitism. But it's also a way for them to be restricting other speech and targeting others who they are being targeted not specifically for anti-Israel speech because they have drawn all the attention to Israel and to these claims of anti-Semitism. Does that make sense? Where you kind of said what you were referring to at the end there. It was already dying because of the contradictions of liberal democracy, but Israel's the final blow. Right. Where this has been an ongoing project. And so these institutions, these governments that are targeting prominent figures like Hasan and Cenk, and specifically the criticism of Israel playing a major role, they also have the incentive here to keep crying anti-Semitism, not just to protect their alignment with Israel, but also because it then makes this issue about, oh, we are trying to prevent bigotry, a rise in anti-Semitism. And that then also provides a shield from the other speech that they are censoring, all kinds of ideas all across the spectrum. And it turns it into it turns it solely into protection of Jewish people. Lawmakers in the United States are quietly advancing a proposal that could deepen military ties between the U.S. and Israel in unprecedented ways at a time when public support for Israel among Americans is increasingly fractured. Great. The NDAA, which Congress passes annually to set military policy and authorize defense spending, will undergo further debate and amendments before becoming law. Some legislators have already signaled opposition, with Representative Thomas Massey saying he would seek to remove the provision if it reaches the House floor. So if this passed, it would limit political oversight over the defense relationship. Great. That's what we need. Less oversight, more defense spending, less oversight. This could mark a significant shift in the U.S.-Israel relationship, moving beyond a model centered on American military aid towards deeper institutional integration between the two countries' defense industries and militaries. Critics argue that such a move would make support for Israel less a matter of political choice and more a structural feature of U.S. national security policy, embedding the relationship within joint military and industrial programs that would be difficult to unwind. This also then takes the pressure off of Congress, most of Congress, who, of course, are Israel high, Israel, supporting Israel, because it then allows them to really pass that off to the military, to the Defense Department. Liberalism dying in physical form.
Happy that they are a free country, like Finland, where the free speech is a right, where they have not any restrictions. If they would be in Moscow, they would be in jail. They can be happy that they are a free country, like Finland.
If they were in Moscow, they would be arrested for their speech, but not here in the UK. Where is this, Finland? An ironic moment occurred when EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen praised Finland's free speech just as a protester was being forcibly removed from the crowd. While addressing a group of loud demonstrators, von der Leyen stated, "You can be happy that you live in a free country like Finland. Here there is freedom of speech and no restrictions. Not like Moscow." The loud activist was fined 110 euros for disrupting the pro-EU rally with his anti-EU statements.
They won't be in jail.
Me when I love free speech. Oh my God. Yeah. So, of course, the usual suspects, the free speech defenders, the leftists who hate Hasan Piker are not all. Some of them have made an exception here to be like, listen, I don't like Hasan Piker, but this is wrong and I can't agree with this. But others are, of course, going, yay, Yahoo. Yeah, like Anna Kasparian making sure to take the time to first say how much she does not like Hasan, but then saying that she does not support this, where it's like, wow, thank you so much, Anna. Which, if this happened to Tucker Carlson, Anna would not start off her statement by saying, I don't like Tucker Carlson. She would say, as somebody who is great friends with Tucker Carlson and deeply admires his courage, I cannot stand for this censorship. She did defend him against false claims, though. I would fucking hope so. I would fucking hope so. But she still cannot help but to make sure that everyone knows that she thinks Hasan is a little rat. Yeah, the bare minimum. Wow. Got her shot in before she talked about him on TYT. Mm-hmm. Or Jill Filipovic, who is, I don't know who's more obnoxious, Shannon Watts or Jill Filipovic, but Jill, who was like, look, I think Hasan Piker and Cenk Uygur are absolute morons, anti-Semites, blah, 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 blah. But this is wrong, barring them from the UK. And it's like, hey, I know that Jill is fucking brain dead on this issue, but continuing to perpetrate this idea that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism, that's what these governments who are barring Israel critics are using as their argument. Okay? Hello?
From the UK, but can I start off with something a little different? So we're going to talk about Cenk and Hasan getting banned from the UK, but I see this as part of a broader campaign targeting you, Haas, because I don't like being put in a situation where I have to defend you. I'm just going to keep it 100. But Dave Rubin went on a show and claimed...
Wait, I didn't even realize he was on TYT and she got that dig in.
That you harassed me and other women at work, which was a brazen lie. Can I start off with something a little different? So,
oh God, Anna, when you have more love for people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson than you do your own co-host nephew, who the reason that she hates Hasan is because Hasan surpassed TYT. Because Hasan reached the point that Anna and Cenk thought they were going to. That's where they believe they should be. It is, despite what Anna will say about why she doesn't like Hasan, it's that. I mean, she's also kind of said that too, though. She's not even 10 seconds into talking to him and already has said this. Yeah. She's like, he's a spoiled fucking ungrateful brat who doesn't deserve to have what he has. The problem is TYT isn't radical enough and they know it. Yeah, I mean, TYT is, as I said, friendlier, and by TYT I mean Cenk and Anna, friendlier to people like Tucker Carlson than they are to leftists who challenge them when they are being fucking right wing. Which is just really embarrassing and completely showing their asses. Okay, let's talk about Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe, who is, if she were alive today, would be 100 years old, which is so crazy to think of the fact that Betty White, also rest in peace, Betty White was older than Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn, though, has had the effect of feeling timeless, even though she died so young. She died in 1962, but because she's been immortalized. So she has that immortal effect. And then you realize, oh my God, Betty White was older than Marilyn Monroe. Are you just finding out Betty White passed? Every time on the stream here, people find out for the first time that somebody is no longer alive. Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about Marilyn because of Marilyn's 100th birthday, but also because I think over the decades that Marilyn has been dead, what's been lost is what made Marilyn Monroe such an interesting figure. And the fact that at the time she was rising in prominence, she was very radical in her politics and in her beliefs. She was anti-McCarthyism, She had she was tied to communist, well, as they would call them back then, a communist sympathizer. But she was very much a leftist and had a basis in working class solidarity because of her background. And anyway, so she was she was super rad. She was super rad.
Icons. And then there is Marilyn Monroe. The legendary star would have turned 100 tomorrow. We begin with Tracy Smith on A Century of Marilyn.
There is a river called the River of No Return.
It's been said that she was uncomfortable in front of a camera. But
yeah, the thing about Marilyn is that she was very different from the image that was projected of her on screen. She would only dress up at fancy public events, but preferred to be much more low key when she was not in public. And she actually was outspoken against the deeply dehumanizing, misogynistic, objectifying studio system, to the point that she formed her own production company in order to try and have more control creatively, and was advocating for equal pay. And at the time, this was incredibly revolutionary because it was in the 50s. So her advocating for equal pay for women and for economic independence was crazy. And I think a lot of people think of her, for the time, I think a lot of people think of her as somebody who was just a victim of the studio system, like pretty much every single actress at that time was. And that she was kind of more of a wallflower who just went wherever she was told, smiled when she was told to smile, wore what she was told to dress. And in fact, she was much more outspoken and stood up for herself and others. Ella Fitzgerald was one example of a friendship that she formed, and how Ella remarked that Marilyn was unusual. She's like, this white lady is not like a lot of other white ladies.
But she was one of the most photographed women of the 20th century.
Having a heat wave, a tropical heat wave.
And now, in a world where it seems everyone is fighting for attention, her influence and her legacy stand taller than ever.
I wanna be loved by you, just you, nobody else but you. I wanna be loved by you alone.
Spudding, thank you for the 33 months.
For the ultimate movie star, it's no surprise that the Motion Picture Academy Museum in Los Angeles is going big.
Then someone broke my heart in Little Rock.
And then, of course, this is from the Little Rock number. This is a cut scene from the 7-Year Itch where she dresses up like Mae West.
Curator Sophia Serrano and museum director Amy Homa put together a collection of all things Marilyn, including some of her more dazzling film costumes. Marilyn Monroe, Hollywood icon, opens today.
When you tell people, hey, we have a Marilyn exhibition coming up, what's the reaction?
Excitement. The fire has not extinguished. People still want to connect with Marilyn, whether they've seen all of these films or whether they're going to be introduced to these titles for the first time through our exhibition. She is everlasting.
Do you have a white whale, the one thing that you knew you had to get for this exhibition?
She had that classic Great Depression childhood. Yes. So Marilyn grew up in the Great Depression, And she spent her childhood in foster homes. At one point, landed at an orphanage, and then eventually she ended up in a foster home that I think the people who ran the foster home were let me get this correct. Yes, there was a lot of abuse that she experienced in her childhood, but she did end up ending somewhere that was a lot more stable. And I think that was where she started to foment her moral compass and her politics. And so seeing society's ills, relating it to her own socioeconomic background and upbringing, was what fostered in her a sense of justice and what would form to would form into very radical beliefs, especially at the time.
Ambition. The pink dress from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
A kiss on the hand, maybe quite continental.
There's one story about when she was on the set of All About Eve. This was in 1950. And she was reading a book because she loved to read. One of her favorite things was to be in privacy, usually in the comfort of her home, and just be reading books. But she was on set and she was reading the autobiography of Lincoln Steffens, and the other people who she was on set with were like, hey, you should not be reading that book, because if the studio heads see you reading this book, they're like, first of all, don't even be reading. But secondly, don't be reading this book because this could be detrimental to your career. And she was like, I don't care. They're like, don't be reading this autobiography of Lincoln Steffens, someone who is someone who was an investigative journalist who investigated corruption, specifically in politics, went after political machines and bribery and all that. Don't be reading that around these studio heads who are going to be very concerned, especially because this was in 1950 with the rise of the Cold War and the Red Scare and a focus on defeating communism, and that these studio heads would not want to be having somebody like MARILYN as a star who is potentially dangerous due to her politics.
But diamonds are a girl's best friend.
You remember the dress.
Anti-corporatist thing, the 12
number
months.
with the gloves from a scene with the song you can't forget either. Of course they tracked it down, and of course there's a story behind it. The dress is actually a last-minute stand-in. The original design was a lot more revealing, but during production, some nude photos that MARILYN had shot years earlier came to light. So, to tone down her racy image a bit, the studio head ordered up the more modest pink dress for the song. The dress and the film were hits, but for MARILYN, it was just another hurdle.
In many ways, she represents resilience, and that is, I think, something that's really relatable and something that a lot of people can draw on for inspiration when they have their own challenges.
Also, because MARILYN was a blonde bombshell and a sex symbol, there are those who believe that Arthur Miller, who's a famous playwright, who she was married to, and Arthur Miller, who was a member of communist organizations, that she was a shield for his, but also her political activities, because Marilyn was seen as a dumb blonde. And so nobody was really kind of looking at Marilyn Monroe as a communist sympathizer until the FBI did start to monitor her over suspected communist ties. But that her kind of playing this role of, benevolent sexism, her playing this role of often a dumb blonde in the movies she was cast in through her contract with 20th Century Fox was a shield for both her and Arthur Miller. I've heard so much about Marilyn, but had no idea about her politics aside from the JFK affair, which depends on who you ask if she actually had the affair or not. So what happened with the FBI is that she started to be watched like a lot of other cultural figures, academics, people who the government viewed as most likely to be tied to communist organizations. So the FBI was watching a shit ton of people in this era and keeping tabs on who was associated with who. So they started to monitor Marilyn when she became involved with Arthur Miller, because their interest was mainly in Arthur Miller. And they just saw Marilyn as, like I said, this dumb blonde who was in a relationship with someone who was potentially a danger. So Arthur Miller was called to testify in front of the House on American Activities Committee, but Marilyn was not. But the FBI was monitoring her and Arthur Miller's activities. So suspicions arose that she may also be a communist. And so they started monitoring her opinions, tracking her whereabouts. But ultimately, they came to the conclusion that she was harmless.
For I must have you or no one, and so I'm through with love.
Before she was Marilyn, she was Norma Jean, a child of divorce who lived in a string of foster homes. In fact, to avoid going to a new foster home, she got married at age 6.
And we see how things have come full circle, or rather that censorship never went away, that blacklisting, censorship, the attempts of institutional silencing of dissent has not gone away. So what we're seeing today, people are making the comparisons to 1950, but it's not as if what happened in the 50s happened and then we went through a period of freedom and now we're back here. This is all a continuation. But Arthur Miller wrote a play, very, very famous play in 1953 called The Crucible. And this play he wrote was in response to the political targeting and the blacklisting and censorship that was occurring as a result of America's competition with Russia, as a result of the Red Scare, the rise in anti-communist sentiment and propaganda. So it was his work that made the FBI go, we got to watch this guy, which then led to also watching Marilyn.
To a 21-year-old neighbor, James.
Death of a Salesman is Death of a Salesman is about capitalism.
Dougherty. Husband number 2 was better known, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio. And number 3 was playwright Arthur Miller, who wrote this movie, The Misfits, for her.
I never really saw anything grow before. How tiny those seeds were. And yet they know they're supposed to be lettuces.
You say the darndest things. You know that, don't you?
Marilyn Monroe made 29 films, some of them true classics, but none of it came easy. She had a reputation for being moody and, later in her career, chronically late, often keeping crews and directors waiting for hours.
It took a lot for her to get ready. Her makeup routine took hours. The costuming often took a lot of work to get it just right.
Off topic. Have you read The Yellow Wallpaper? Yes. Read that in high school, I think.
She would spend hours in front of a mirror just rehearsing and prepping before going onto the set. But a lot of people always say what you did get was 100% worth it.
She never did win an Oscar, but today her image alone is big business. When Marilyn died, she left nearly everything to her acting coach, Lee Strasberg, and in 2011, his widow sold most of Marilyn's estate to a company called Authentic Brands Group, who now license her image worldwide on artwork and products from champagne to fake fingernails. What's more, Marilyn has upwards of 15 million.
And I think there's shame in the fact that Marilyn's image has been so commercialized, and that people's obsession with her largely having to do with her status as a sex symbol. And yes, a fascination around her life because she died so young, because she had all these marriages, because of like just all the people that she was connected to, because of all the mystery, all that. But a lot of people's love of Marilyn being devoid of a real understanding of who this person was. And obviously it's hard to encompass her in just kind of one blurb, but it's like people who will say, oh my God, I love Marilyn Monroe. Oh, I'm obsessed, who have modeled a lot of their own identity or their aesthetic after Marilyn in this era, but really have no interest in her beyond the public image of Marilyn Monroe. Her brand and image has basically been watered down and made her seem one-dimensional. Yes, that she exists as a brand. The OG influencer and never knew it. Yeah. I mean, it is remarkable how much staying cultural power Marilyn Monroe has had, which is a testament to what an icon she was, and that she is not lessened in popularity, but she was out there supporting Castro. Like Marilyn Monroe, I bet you if you asked people obsessed with Marilyn Monroe, if you're like, did you know that she was a fan of Castro and was publicly supporting him? They would be like, because there are plenty of people who don't align with Marilyn Monroe's politics and would not want to know that that was actually what she believed. So they would want to stay in denial of this person who has largely been fictionalized to the public, and people's understanding of her being very superficial. They would be like, get out of here with that.
Followers on social media, many of them young, says Authentic Brands' Dana Carpenter.
About 54% of that following is under the age of 34.
Why do you think that is? Why are young people still interested in Marilyn Monroe?
I would like to believe that they really like her self-starter story. I think that really left a mark on a lot of people.
A waiter.
And that isn't a waiter, my dear, that's a butler.
Well, I can't yell, "Oh, butler," can I? Maybe somebody's name is Butler.
She was the top female box office draw for much of her career, but while Marilyn Monroe always looked like $1 million, she didn't have anywhere near that much.
How long have you been studying Marilyn Monroe and collecting items?
Well, probably since I discovered her at about 12 or 13 years old, so well over 40 years now.
40 years.
Scott Fortner, who owns the Marilyn Monroe collection, has taken a deep dive into her finances.
Oh, this is so cool because it says exactly who she paid.
Right.
You have some of her bank statements and even checks she wrote?
Yeah, I have her full 1962 archive of financial documents. And what's amazing about this documentation is it tells you exactly what Marilyn made and what she spent her money on. And it really is a great tool for dispelling a lot of the rumors and stories that are out there about Marilyn. So one story is that she borrowed $5,000 from Joe DiMaggio to put down on this house in Brentwood. But these statements show that in January, when she put that deposit down, she made over $250,000 in royalties from her films. And there's no deposit into an account for $5,000. There's the expense for the deposit, but she didn't need to borrow money from Joe.
She could buy that house on her own.
She bought that house on her own. Exactly.
Someone please burn my bank statements after I die.
And in the summer of 1962, that house was where she gave her final interview, talking with Life magazine about everything from movies to money.
I would like...
Chat, you laugh at one of you is going to pay 6 figures at auction in 6 years for Hasan's bank statements for the Son Biker collection. If I were to watch 3 movies of hers, which would you recommend? Okay. Some Like It Hot, which we watched for film class. I think that is probably my favorite comedic work of hers. And a lot of people view it as her a lot of people view it as her masterpiece, as like her just everything that was great about Marilyn, her magnum opus. Yeah. Everything that was great about Marilyn all coming together and being in Some Like It Hot. I would say as well, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, very iconic. If you want to watch her last film, that would be The Misfits. So that was her alongside Clark Gable. Yeah, so Some Like It Hot, Misfits as her which was her last film, and was a very dramatic performance. And 7 Year Itch is great as well. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes or 7 Year Itch. She only really was performing for about a decade because she started in the 40s, but the Marilyn Monroe acting era, that is her really prime performance era, was about a decade, from the beginning of the 50s up until her death in 1962.
Enough to
Jen, thank you for the 43 months.
Myself on, and those around me who need a little help. But to be a millionaire isn't any ambition of mine. It was never one of my American dreams.
The interview and photos, many never before seen in public, are in a new book that the publishers consider her official autobiography, Marilyn, The Lost Photos, The Last Interview. That interview was published August 3, 1962, and 2 days later, Marilyn was found at her home, dead of an apparent drug overdose.
Do you have any doubt in your mind that she killed herself?
It's my opinion that she died by her own hand, whether it was intentional or accidental. That's the big question. I think the general public is unaware of the fact that she had overdosed in the past. It wasn't the first time. Arthur Miller talks about 2 times that he had saved her when she had overdosed, and there were times before that as well.
One of the most famous stars in Hollywood history is dead at 36.
Marilyn's death
so
has
young.
become part of her mystique. But for millions of fans, it's not about how she died, but how she lived. And to all of them, she is eternal.
Do you think 100 years from now, people are still going to be talking about Marilyn Monroe?
Well, I feel that she's our modern-day Cleopatra, so I think the answer to that question is probably yes. And I say that because she's had certain impacts on pop culture that still to this day are existent and ongoing.
I hate a careless man.
Do you get the sense that people just still love Marilyn?
Oh, yes. There's a reason that she's still as popular and ever present today, and I think that she always will be. And what it boils down to is she was troubled, she was challenged. At the same time, she was a genius. Look at what she accomplished.
Isn't it delicious?
She created this character that the world fell in love with and still to this day is in love with.
Oh, Marilyn.
And his books.
Okay, so this is Mina Lay's video. Let's discuss the obsession with Marilyn Monroe. And I'm going to keep it a buck. I was trying to find YouTube videos earlier that really dove into Marilyn's politics. And there really wasn't much. So I don't know if Mina gets into it here, but I'll just add in my notes as we go along. Vio, what's up, girlfriend? Okay, so continuing on with talking about Marilyn Monroe.
Hello, my beautiful doves. My name is Mina, and welcome back to my channel.
You should do it. Yeah.
Given the recent events, the Met Gala, and the fact that I think Christie's sold Andy Warhol's portrait of Marilyn Monroe for the affordable cost of $200 million, I thought it would finally be a good opportunity for me to do a video on Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn was pro-China. I say that she was radical for the time, but today she would still be radical. She was, as I said, supporting Castro. She expressed admiration for what was being done in China. She fucking despised J. Edgar Hoover. She hated all of McCarthy and McCarthyism. She supported Arthur Miller, who was refusing to spill on other communists in Hollywood, because what was happening is people were being brought in before the HUAC and were being told, you have to spill the beans. And if you don't, then we're going to pursue X, Y, and Z. So that is why Elia Kazan ratted out a bunch of his peers whose careers were then destroyed. And so when he went on to go win an Oscar, there's that clip of Amy Madigan and Ed Harris refusing to applaud for him at the Oscars because he was a rat. He ratted out people who were, and again, remember that communist was used for all progressive politics. So it wasn't people who were specifically communists. It was in the same way today where they call anyone who is not on the right, they call them radical communists. You got establishment libs out here being called communists. But Arthur Miller, when he was brought in front of the committee, refused to give any names, and Marilyn was like, right, she was supporting him, not sharing any names.
I covered one other star on this channel so far, which was Audrey Hepburn, which I did like months ago. So if I could redo that video today, it'd probably be a lot more expansive, but I digress. It is what it is.
Yeah, they called
But
Kamala
similarly
communist.
to the Audrey Hepburn video, for this video, I'm not going to be delving too much into Marilyn's actual biography and like all the events of her life, and focus more on her cultural impact and why people are so obsessed with her still today. Similarly to Audrey Hepburn, who lived under brutal wartime conditions as a kid only to become one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses, Marilyn also had the makings for a Cinderella story. Born Norma Jean, Marilyn's studio publicist initially crafted a story around her difficult childhood, being shuffled from one unkind foster home to another, to provide a story that made her a more relatable figure to audiences watching. Before Marilyn had any starring roles, Robert Kahn described her in an article as a blonde apparition in a strapless black cocktail gown, a little breathless as if she were Cinderella just stepped out from a pumpkin coach. Many of Marilyn's films also reinforce the Cinderella trope, with her fictional counterpart starting out as a lost, innocent girl who ends up with a wealthy love match by the end. So there's a lot to unpack for this video, so let's just dive
This
right
video
in.
goes pretty well into Marilyn's politics in the 20th century and highlighting
Marilyn Monroe
them.
continues to be one of the highest earning dead celebrities for years now, which
That's
is,
why Fosbot
of
banned
course,
your
a
ass.
morbid and kind of inappropriate industry to begin with. According to Forbes, last year, the total earnings for the 13 best compensated dead celebrities was $1 billion. The reason is when Marilyn died in 1962, she died with a net worth of $800,000, which is roughly $7.5 million today. But because of her lavish spending and generous donations, when her estate was settled, her net worth was actually $370,000. In her will, she divided her money between her personal secretary, a few of her close friends, her half-sister, and also left a hefty trust for her mother. The important part here is that she gave her acting coach, Lee Strasberg, 75% of her intellectual property rights and 25% to her therapist, Dr. Marianne Criss. When Strasberg passed away in 1982, his share passed on to his second wife, Anna Mizrahi, who I'm not sure ever met Marilyn because she married Lee in 1967. Afterwards, Anna signed deals that allowed Marilyn's name and face to be plastered on all kinds of different products. And then in 2011, she sold her stake to Authentic Brands Group for $20 to $30 million. Also, in 1999, Christie sold some of Marilyn's belongings for $13.5 million. Among these, her driver's license sold for $145,000, and a few photos of her dog, Maff, went for $222,500.
Funny! How do I get to this point where pictures of Farley are selling for $250,000?
Because these money-hungry corporate heads who virtually have no attachment to the real.
I guess I just have to reach the status of Marilyn Monroe.
Real Marilyn are
next
the ones
gala
making
for
the
good.
decisions for where to put Marilyn's
pictures of
face
Farley?
and name. It's no surprise that her face is literally just plastered on every kind of product, from Absolute Vodka to Mercedes-Benz to yada yada yada. And because her face is literally everywhere, that also leads to this long-standing cultural fascination for her. It's also worth noting that most of these photos of her are the same famous ones. Her standing over the subway grate in her white dress, her publicity photo for the movie Niagara, which is the same photo that Andy Warhol used in her collage. I literally remember learning about Marilyn Monroe before I even watched any Marilyn Monroe movies. I knew about the subway grate scene before I ever watched The 7-Year Itch, which is where the subway scene is from. And because her images are disseminated so widely and so carelessly, Marilyn has become an ever glamorous image, virtually a brand in our popular imagination. According to Virginia Postrel in her book, The Power of Glamour, promotional photos turned ephemeral scenes into permanent stills. We remember many of the most famous movie scenes not from seeing them flashing by on the screen, but from their repetition as printed photographs. Such images lift scenes out of the narrative flow, intensifying their grace and with it their glamour. Like wedding portraits or vacation postcards, the photos preserve transient experiences, distilling them into ideal moments. Even though when we think of the sexual revolution, we think of the 60s and 70s, Richard Dyer notes in his book, Heavenly Bodies,
and Marilyn passed before these social movements, social and economic justice movements took off, because she died in 1962. So she was advocating for economic and social populism before these movements went mainstream. And look, I know that Hollywood today, there are a lot of prominent figures who express liberal social justice beliefs. Now, we know that Hollywood is also extremely Zionist, and so a lot of Hollywood's liberalism is quite hollow and not actually. There are a few people who are radical, truly radical in their politics, but remember that in the 50s, when Marilyn was rising in fame, this was the studio system. The studio system meant that studios had complete and total fucking control over their talent. You signed a contract with a studio and they owned you. This is why people like Judy Garland were put through hell, where as a child, they would give her uppers and then they would give her downers because she was on so many uppers that she couldn't sleep at all. And they were just filling her with pills and substances and putting blackface on her. And she had no control, nothing, as was the case for all performers in the studio system, but particularly for women. And so the fact that MARILYN had these leftist politics came from, her beliefs fomenting around her belief in working class populism at a time when the studio system was what existed in Hollywood makes this even more rad and makes her even more of an outlier.
This was seen as perhaps the most important thing in life in 50s America. He deduced this because there were two Kinsey reports, one on men that was published in 1948, I believe, and then the one on women, which was published in 1953. Anyone unfamiliar with the Kinsey reports, Kinsey's research championed the normalization of sexual diversity and fluidity, and his books were so popular and controversial at the time that the New York Times even dubbed him the father of the sexual revolution in 1997. Also in the 50s, Confidential magazine and Playboy released their first issues. Betty Friedan notes in The Feminine Mystique that from 1950 to 1960, the interest of men in the details of intercourse paled before the avidity of women, both as depicted in these media and as its audience. Part of the reason is that movies in the 50s were competing with a lot of independent, leisurely, home-based activities like television, reading, and home-based sports. So one of the things that Hollywood tried to do to set movies apart was to experiment with some more provocative material that would not be appropriate to air on television. Of course, the widespread availability of didn't happen until much later, and then the Hays Code was still in effect into the 1960s, but Hollywood was definitely starting to loosen its production code. And Marilyn Monroe, either intentionally or unintentionally, was a pioneer of this Hollywood shift. Sarah Churchwell writes in her book, The Many Lives of Marilyn,
intentionally.
Part of the reason Marilyn became so identified with the static concept of sexuality is that she began her career as a pinup. A pinup sold a coy, sanitized image of the sexually available woman. Most famously, she modeled nude during one photo session with Tom Kelly in 1948 when she was struggling to make ends meet in Hollywood. She made $50 from the photo, which is known as Golden Dreams, and the negatives were sold to a company making calendars. In March 1952, it became a major news story that Marilyn had posed nude for a calendar company. But at the time, relatively few people actually got a hold of these calendars and saw these photos. So in 1953, Hugh Hefner bought the negatives from the calendar company and used the photos to promote his new issue of his new magazine, Playboy. He bought the negatives for only $500 and he made millions, of course, from Playboy, never having paid Marilyn any cent of the profits.
Oh, brother, this
One day, we're going to do a deep dive on Hugh Hefner.
guy stinks!
Marilyn tried to save face at the time, choosing guiltlessness when interrogated by the press. In an interview with Aline Mosby, Monroe said that she'd done the photo because she needed the money, that Kelly's wife was present at the time, and besides, I'm not ashamed of it, I've done nothing wrong. Time magazine wrote of the whole affair. Marilyn believes in doing what comes naturally.
I will get peachin' on that.
Unfortunately, all this laissez-faire behavior led to this societal belief that Marilyn was inherently a very sexual person, which is a totally fine thing now, but in the 1950s, society was a lot more Puritan, and therefore her sexuality was sensationalized, and it was used as an excuse to ogle at her body and diminish her acting abilities. In 1956, Monroe had her only cover of Time magazine, which included a long feature-length profile. The writer noted, Marilyn Monroe's hip-flipping, lip-twitching, frolicsomely sensual figure is the latest curve on the path of erotic progress that has led Hollywood from the slithering vamp to the good-natured tramp. In Coronet, Grady Johnson calls her a luscious blonde with the tree-ripened sex appeal and a full-lipped, full-breasted girl who has hitched a sex wagon to Hollywood's fastest-climbing star, going as far as to state that she is developing a singularly unnecessary skill as an actress. The view that Marilyn was not an actress but a model was very...
Why does this actress need to develop skills as an actress? It's so unnecessary. Come on. All she's got to do is just put her tits out there and be a little tramp.
Popular. Laurence Olivier, who directed and starred in The Prince and the Showgirl with Marilyn Monroe, said this of Marilyn.
Inside, somewhere or other, she doesn't want to act. She wants to show herself. That's another thing. She is a model.
Oh my God.
By accident or by a villainy of nature, forced to be an actress. That's the answer to her.
So, first of all, Marilyn Monroe...
Shut the fuck up, Laurence Olivier. Laurence Olivier, who, yes, was a fantastic actor, but was a misogynistic prick, like so many men. Pompous ass. And the fact that Marilyn, who was a woman in the 40s and the 50s when she started to act, and do you think that there were tons of opportunities for women, and B, that there were diverse roles for women? No. So Marilyn was fashioned into the blonde bimbo, was put into often roles where she is playing the dumb blonde. You know who was also forced into that and she had to break out of that? Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda, who came along a little bit later, who rose up in the 60s. Jane Fonda was also relegated to dumb blonde roles until she forcefully broke out of that. So the fact that these fucking men look at these women and are like, oh, please, she doesn't want to be an actress. She's not a serious person. She just wants to be looked at. She's beautiful. And that's a wonderful thing. And she should just accept her role as being beautiful and being a model. And really, I mean, look at what she's doing out here, where it's like, do you know that it's men who are making those decisions? Because men were the ones who ran the studios. Men were the ones who solely had executive power in the industry. And these same men who are forcing women into these very small boxes would then turn around also and insult them for being, for playing these roles that they were basically stuck with.
Made The Prince and the Showgirl after she studied method acting with Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio. And for anyone who doesn't know who Lee Strasberg is, he's like the father of method acting.
Also, Marilyn was one of the first stars to defy the studio system. And as I said, the studio system was incredibly rigid. Nobody except the heads of the studios had power. So she, just being this dumb, blonde, pretty face, also happens to be one of the first stars to defy the studio system. And what she did was she violated her contract in order to study at the Actors Studio in New York. She basically said, fuck this, I'm going to New York, because guess what? Marilyn was interested in acting. Marilyn was interested in honing her craft. Despite what Laurence Olivier and these other misogynists say, Marilyn cared so much that she put her contract at risk by telling the studio to fuck off. And she went to New York. And when she came back, she demanded things like directorial approval. She started Marilyn Monroe Productions, which later the FBI claimed Marilyn Monroe Productions was filled with communists and they were sending all the money they were making to communist Russia. But she created her own production company. And she knew that at that point she had more leverage than the men in power would want her to believe. And the reason she had leverage is because she was the biggest box office draw for Fox. And so she used her leverage to try and go up against the extremely exploitative, very one-sided power studio system.
Trained a lot of people like Al Pacino and like et cetera. Like he's like well known in the acting space. And while I don't defend the fact that she struggled memorizing her lines and that she often showed up late. When watching this movie, anyone can see that she does a way better job than Lawrence in terms of comedic acting. So I don't really know what he's talking about. Another important thing to note when it comes to Marilyn's appeal is that in the mid-20th century, white
Marilyn, this is pretty well known, but she struggled with anxiety and imposter syndrome. And you have to wonder if that was a result of so many people telling her that she was not a real actress and instead she was just a pretty face. But she had debilitating anxiety, and that was, her anxiety levels were so bad that it prevented her from going to set. Like, she would be in her dressing room trying to hype herself up and get herself to set in order to perform because her anxiety was so debilitating.
Women were viewed as like the prized possession of the white men, which is why in a lot of old movies, there's this constant theme of like white men protecting their white women. Probably the most racist and most offensive, disturbing example is The Birth of a Nation.
Also, sorry, I have no problem with Marilyn behaving that way due to her extreme anxiety because of how many men behave atrociously on set, are, you know, in that day, but also currently showing up drunk, being violent on set, abusing crew members, abusing co-stars, and getting away with it because they're fucking men, because they're great artists, because they're tortured, whatever the fuck it is. I don't care about Marilyn Monroe being late to set due to debilitating anxiety, which I do believe was due to people diminishing her and dehumanizing her because of how many of these men were fucking drunk ass abusers.
Which was a movie that was released in the 1910s and glorifies the KKK. Dyer also argues that blonde hair was frequently associated with wealth, and platinum blonde, which Marilyn was for a time, visually rhymed with silver or gold dress and jewelry. Blondness is generally racially unambiguous because not a lot of people of color have blonde hair. Like, it's pretty much like associated with whiteness. And in something that's important to note is like during the 1950s, like interracial like marriage, I think, was still illegal in a lot of states. And a lot of Hollywood movies and plays like centered on this like scandal of being mixed race. Take, for instance, the 1957 movie Raintree County, which stars
miscegenation laws were still being upheld in the 60s. So yes, very much so in the 50s. Interracial relationships were absolutely not being depicted and were illegal. So there's that. And then there's also the fact that under Hays Code, it was so restrictive. This is why couples on television or in movies would not sleep in the same bed. Like, there was such a conservative purity around sex that when the 60s then comes along with its free love, social justice movements, second wave feminism, that was what ushered in a push for liberation to contrast the previous extremely repressive conservative decades. But then that also resulted in women being labeled as tramps and whores and hussies, and how dare they, on the one hand, people, of course, wanting to see these beautiful women be sexually liberated on screen, but also grasping their pearls and being like, oh my God, these fucking whores.
Elizabeth Taylor, who is a prominent brunette actress of the time. And her character in the movie, there's like a moment where she goes crazy because she thinks she might have a black mother. Or another example is the 1959 remake Imitation of Life, which features the stories of two girls, the white brunette Susan Kohner, who plays a white passing black girl Susie, and the blonde Sandra Dee, who plays the white girl Annie. In the movie, Susie
Yeah, remember back in the day, being brunette was diverse.
deals with internalized racism and constantly attempts to deny her blackness. Dyer recalls how Marilyn's blondness and subsequent whiteness is often emphasized in a lot of her movie roles.
Look at her gleam in there. So pale and white.
Ew. Ew. Ew.
So Richard Dyer refers to Marilyn's archetype as the girl, which he describes succinctly as being defined solely by age, gender, and sexual appeal. He elaborates, she's knitted into the fabric of the film through point of view shots located in male characters. Even in the later films, and virtually always in the earlier ones, she is set up as an object of male sexual gaze. Her character in The 7-Year Itch is probably the most representative of this trope because in the movie, Marilyn's character doesn't actually have a name. She's portrayed as this innocently desirable girl who's made the butt of lots of jokes, and the movie even pushes the idea that Marilyn is literally her character because one of the jokes is when the main character Richard is wondering who his upstairs neighbor is, and he says sarcastically,
maybe it's Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn's characters tend to embody both the sexual and the naive.
Are you sure you want to waste your champagne now that you know that I'm married?
I think it's wonderful that you're married. I think it's just delicate. I mean, I wouldn't be lying on the floor in the middle of the night in some man's apartment drinking champagne if he wasn't married.
That's a very interesting line of reasoning.
And unlike other Hollywood actresses who were cast in a sexual light, Marilyn was never an ordinary girl next door type. Her sex appeal was almost always exaggerated, and she brought humor and lightness to the majority of her roles. Another good example of this archetype is in the movie that I referenced before, which is The Prince and the Showgirl. In it, there's a scene where Laurence Olivier, who plays the regent, makes this poetic speech.
I have never known what it is to love or be loved. It is like the legend of the sleeping princess, only here it is the prince who sleeps and awaits the kiss of the beautiful young maiden that will bring him back to life.
You mean you want me to kiss you?
You are so literal.
Marilyn is actually like a great comedy actress. Like, she's very funny.
That's why the first movie I said to the person who asked for 3 Marilyn films to watch was Some Like It Hot, because her comedic timing in Some Like It Hot is golden. She was so funny, but also there was so much warmth and heart in her performance and whimsy. And as we've talked about many times before, comedy is not something that everyone can do. And if you can do if you can excel in comedic acting, you can transition into dramatic acting, where it's harder to be a dramatic actor and then try and do comedy. So Marilyn was always, I felt, undersold for how talented she was as a comedic actress.
Isn't it silly, though?
What is it, astigmatism?
No, just blind as a bat.
Me too.
Oh, really? Then why aren't you wearing glasses?
And I don't think people appreciate this enough because I don't know why comedy is viewed as this like lesser, less serious film medium in the film
Plain
commentary
windows, head
space.
curtains, that's right.
But I think it's because it's really hard to make a good comedy because a lot of actors are really bad at comedy because comedy requires you to have really precise and really good, frankly good, line delivery and comedic timing and facial expressions. There's a lot that goes into it that a lot of people don't appreciate. Marilyn's specific brand of comedy was based on wide-eyed literalism, non sequiturs, and misinterpretation. And this is like the type of comedy that she had in real life as well. For example, in 1952, quoted in Time magazine, when asked if she had anything on during the nude photo shoot, she said, "I had the radio on." Sarah Churchwell writes, the literalness became part of her comic persona on screen and off, helping to blur the boundaries between the two. And this blurring was a problem because critics started to think that Marilyn was just playing herself in a lot of these movies. One reviewer said, like a flower, Marilyn has always been at her best simply by being. And while Marilyn may not have had the range or may not have had the opportunity to develop a range, I think just casting off her acting ability by saying, oh, she's just playing herself is incredibly reductive. The truth is, Marilyn was acting her whole life. The persona of Marilyn Monroe was something that she crafted herself and something that she had to upkeep during any kind of like public appearance. And while she's probably the most famous case of someone adopting a persona, she's definitely not the only one.
Okay, I just remembered this story where she was being interviewed by a journalist for Redbook magazine, and this was the last interview she gave to Redbook, and it was published after she died. And Marilyn had become very involved in protesting nuclear proliferation. When I tell you that her politics were so sound, they were so sound. So she was deeply concerned about the growing presence of nuclear power. And she followed along and then became a member of an anti-nuclear organization. But in this interview, she is asked by the reporter, what do you dream? And she said, my dreams are too intimate to be revealed in public. And then the journalist asked, what is your nightmare? And she goes, my nightmare is the H-bomb. What's yours? Which is just so iconic and also representative of how Marilyn was always thinking about everything that was in her surrounding world. So I'm sure she threw this journalist for a loop when she said, oh, my nightmare, it's the H-bomb. What about yours?
As I mentioned in my Audrey Hepburn video, Audrey was known for playing these quirky, down-to-earth girl next door types, which is evidently why she was cast in Breakfast at Tiffany's, despite the writer of the story, Truman Capote, saying he wanted Marilyn for the role. Studios at the time were concerned that the movie would be too raunchy if they casted Marilyn as Holly Golightly, because in the book, Holly Golightly is a call girl. So they decided to cast Audrey to make the movie more censor friendly, which is kind of ridiculous because Audrey still like plays a call girl.
True man.
But because Audrey had this reputation of being just like this very classy, very elegant lady, they felt like by casting her, it would balance out some of the more sexual undertones of the script. And they also like rewrote a lot of scenes in the script. So I will say that I think like even though Audrey Hepburn was known for these specific character traits and that she was casted in a lot of very similar roles, she wasn't
Audrey was also amazing. She was an amazing person. And she was very, very involved, deeply involved in humanitarian work. She grew up in the Netherlands, which was occupied by the Nazis during World War II, and it shaped her worldview in which she deeply believed in. She was very anti-war and advocated for civilian populations that lived in regions marred by constant war and violence, and she was an advocate for the welfare of children and believed that there was nothing political about the life of a child.
Tied to an off-screen.
She suffered from famine, which was why she was underweight and couldn't follow a ballet dancer career.
In persona as Marilyn Monroe was. But in general, stars of the studio era were pushed into these archetypes so that companies...
With Audrey being... the fact that... Oh my God. The fact that eating disorder communities hold up Audrey Hepburn as one of their icons. They're like, oh my God, need to be skinny like Audrey was. She was malnourished. She experienced famine, which caused her to be very underweight. And it was a result of war and poverty, and not because she was like trying to be hashtag skinny.
Could capitalize on their previous successes. Like if we think about it, imagining that a celebrity is like the same exact person as the character they play leads to these parasocial relationships because audiences think they know this person based on what they see in the movie theater. This is all to say that I don't think Marilyn Monroe should be undermined at all in terms of acting ability, because she was basically like forced to play this character both on screen and off screen, which takes a lot of talent and labor. In some, Conkle writes, contrary to the belief that this meant she couldn't act then, Monroe gave a performance so convincing in all realms of her public existence that her ability to maintain this type in her film roles was believed to be not a performance at all. In the latter half of her career, Marilyn actually tried to break away from this archetype. Famously, she moved to New York. She left Hollywood in protest against Fox Studio because she believed, one, that she was not getting the roles she wanted to play, and two, because they were underpaying her in relation to how much money she was making them as a rising star. While in New York, she started training with Lee Strasberg.
It wasn't just the rising star. She was the biggest box office draw.
At the Actors Studio. Once again, Strasberg is infamous for championing the method acting technique, which is a whole can of worms that I don't really want to open in this video. I'm personally against method acting because I feel like it's very dangerous and like kind of unhealthy because it's...
No. Here's the thing with method acting. Okay. Method acting has gained a terrible reputation because of bullshit dudes in Hollywood who use the excuse of method acting to be freak-ass abusers and to be horrific on set. Method acting is not... The originations of method acting and the creators of it, people like Lee Strasberg, what they taught was not what somebody like Jared Leto does. So... just want to make that distinction that method acting now has a bad reputation because of individual male actors who hide behind method acting as justification for their very shitty behavior. Doesn't often... There are plenty of actors who have been trained in method or employ, maybe not full, maybe a mixture, combination of acting techniques, and are not obnoxious assholes.
Basically like pulling from your own traumatic experiences to create like authentic...
Hell, even Dustin Hoffman fucked that method using it as a justification to be abusive.
...emotions, and I don't know, it just like doesn't seem that great. But with that said, it was definitely a style that was growing credibility in mainstream society thanks to successful method actors like Marlon Brando and James Dean. Then in December 1955, she negotiated a new contract with her studio that gave her a better pay rate, required her to make only 4 instead of 14 movies in the next 7 years, as well as the ability to approve the directors of the film.
Okay, let me explain method for those who don't know. So method acting, which was the original system, was developed by Stanislavski, and then Lee Strasberg, who was referred to as the father of the method, adapted. He was a student of Stanislavski, and he adapted his methods and taught in the United States. So what it is a way to pull out an authentic performance by immersing yourself fully in the character. So instead of like... This is the only paper that I have that I was going to use as a prop for a script, and it's this. So instead of... Here's the script, all right? Here's my script. Yeah, this is me wearing a bunch of hats. Literally, all the hats. All the hats. So instead of me reading lines off a page, lines of dialogue, which I imitate the character through just reading these lines of dialogue, method acting is a technique to pull from your memory, your personal experiences, your sense memory to take real life experiences and emotions from that and put that into the work to produce a more natural and authentic performance. So if I'm reading these lines, this is a bad example, but if the line of dialogue says, my mother died when I was 4 and I don't know. And since then I haven't been the same. Okay, whatever. It's a bad example. Instead of just imitating somebody whose mother has died when they were 4 and it forever altered their life, what I would do is I would try and recall emotions that would be similar to what someone would experience having lost their mother at 4, real emotions that I've experienced, to put that into the dialogue to then produce something that feels more authentic. So I might recall the experience of losing my grandmother, or whatever, another experience of loss, which then I would put into, I would consume myself with that emotion and then channel that through the lines of dialogue. Basically, actors today have completely perverted, twisted what method acting is and how to apply it to the point it's unrecognizable. Yes. So I think people associate method with individual actors who have famously stayed in character the entire time, even when they were offset, have lived very extremely, like Daniel Day-Lewis. Okay. Daniel Day-Lewis, who almost died on the set of Lincoln because he refused medicine when he got sick. And they were like, hey, we kind of need you to be alive in order to finish this film. That is a result of method being taken to the most extreme ends, and also are the representation in pop culture from these individuals, which has then led to this belief that this is what the technique of method acting is, which it does not. Method acting does not mandate, does not make necessary the most extreme antics that we've seen from infamous method actors.
Films and to act in outside pictures, including those for her own production company, MARILYN Monroe.
A true method actor would think about how he was with their mother in the Amazon researching spiders right before she died.
Productions.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, she still didn't get the kind of freedom she wanted in choosing the types of roles to play. So even though I think her acting is better in the latter half of her career, she was still forced into this the girl archetype. In saying that, though, I do think that her performance...
Yeah, so it's an exercise in empathy, right? To empathize with the character you are playing, to truly empathize in a very sincere and honest way, means to understand the character's inner workings and the emotions that they are experiencing by drawing the connections to your own life as a performer. So some acting teachers and acting schools reject this, and they either don't believe or just don't prefer to advocate for a technique where you have to pull from your own life in order to deliver an honest performance. So somebody like Brian Cox, who's always talking shit on method acting and always talking shit on method actors, Brian Cox is like, I show up to set and I just do the work. Where he's like, I'm good enough as an actor. I don't have to do this extra shit. I don't have to like pretend to really be this character. I don't have to draw from my own misery or my own trauma or my own just whatever emotional experiences in order to do the work, because I'm a professional and I show up and I act.
Performances, her new performance.
Which, look, I had studied different acting techniques, and there are pros and cons, I would say, to every technique. And many performers will do sometimes a combination of techniques. Others are much more loyal to maybe a specific technique because that is how they were trained. And then others, especially in Hollywood, don't have any training at all and just are like, whatever, I'm just doing it.
Performances were interesting because they kind of offered this like meta commentary on how Marilyn was forced into these roles. Sorry if that doesn't make any sense, but let me try to clarify that for you. Laura Mulvey writes, if Monroe was going to continue to receive sex pot roles, she could nevertheless use her method training to imbue her performances with commentary on what it means to be viewed continually as a sex pot. For instance, in The Prince and the Showgirl, which was produced by Marilyn Monroe Productions, centers her character Elsie, who is like many of Marilyn's other characters, a showgirl. There's one scene that really stands out to me though, which is when the regent is ignoring Elsie to make phone calls and the camera focuses on Elsie, who's entertaining herself.
Ah, Miss Marina, won't you have some champagne? Oh, I don't know, your Grand Ducal. You really think I ought? Well, maybe just that's it.
Elsie's private performance here is essentially her switching on this like sex pot persona. And when we watch the scene, we can see that the whole persona is something that Elsie, and therefore Marilyn Monroe, can turn off and on whenever she pleases. Misfits is another movie that really stands out from the Marilyn Monroe film canon, mainly because it is the only movie where the role was written in response to her plea for a new acting challenge. The screenplay was written by her then husband, Arthur Miller.
What makes you so sad? I think you're the saddest girl I ever met.
Marilyn's character in the film is Rosalind, who is currently in Reno to get a quick divorce. She decides to help these two cowboys she meets redecorate one of their homes. There's one scene where she's showing Guido, one of the cowboys, the work she's done for his place, and he opens a closet door that has a bunch of old pinup photos of the real Marilyn Monroe. She promptly closes the door, saying, "Oh, don't look at those, they're nothing." Guido insists on opening the door again, and she again keeps closing the door. When I watch this, I read this as Marilyn trying desperately to move on from this persona she's become famous for, to leave it in the past as she pursues more serious acting roles.
Which is so sad because this was her last film, and then the next year she died.
I also view it as the real experience of her nude photos being made centerfolds in Playboy without her consent.
Yep.
I think this is probably Marilyn's best role in terms of highlighting her acting capabilities. The subtle facial expressions she does are extremely natural and show the profound sadness that undercuts her character's circumstances. Of course, these movies are not without criticism. Richard Dyer notes that Rosalind still has no biography and is reduced to a divorcee that still hinges on Marilyn's naive sexual persona, and she is still made the object of the male gaze on multiple occasions. And in The Prince and the Showgirl, one of the first sequences is Marilyn's boob falling out of her dress. So even though there is this underlying meta commentary, there's still this insistence on displaying Marilyn's body and having her perform adjacent roles to a character she's already known for. Photographer Richard Avedon, who worked with Marilyn in real life, once said of her, "There was no such person as Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was an invention of hers, a genius invention that she created like an author creates a character." There's actually quite a lot of testimonials noting the difference between like the real Marilyn and the Marilyn that was viewed by the public. Another photographer, Philippe Halsman, wrote in Life magazine in 1952 about his experience with Marilyn. "I found Marilyn anything but stupid, with amazing frankness and a good sense of humor, and her company stimulating even in a spiritual way. The trait which struck me most was a general benevolence and absolute absence of envy and jealousy, which in an actress was astonishing." These inconsistencies between persona Marilyn and real Marilyn came even more into light after her death.
As Ella Fitzgerald said, as I remarked earlier, she was a very unusual woman for the time, and especially as a white woman, and a white woman who gained fame and was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood.
But unfortunately, when it comes to anyone who dies under uncertain circumstances, whose real life was rendered unknowable by the majority of us, and who was no longer around to verify or deny any testimonials that came out after their death, it is no surprise that her subsequent biographies have relied on a high degree of fictionalization and speculation. For instance, Marilyn did have a drug abuse problem, but there's conflict over how she obtained the drugs in the first place. In Norma Jean and Marilyn, she gets them from Ted Lewis. In Blonde, one of her lovers, Cass, introduces her to pills. In The Secret Life of Marilyn Monroe, Johnny Hyde gives her drugs to calm her down on the set of All About.
Was Sigourney Weaver the first woman to popularize the more strong woman character type in film versus stereotypes? No.
Eve. A lot of these fictionalizations or speculations are really like disrespectful to me because Marilyn was a real person and I feel like they just like botch her legacy. But I understand why they do it. Like, I think,
guys, don't kill me. I thought Ella Fitzgerald was black. She is black. So that's why Ella Fitzgerald, who had a relationship with Marilyn, and Marilyn would advocate for Ella to make sure that she was not getting totally fucked over due to the fact that she was a black woman. That's in part why Ella talked about how unusual Marilyn was. Guys, people get confused sometimes. It's okay. It is okay. Another thing I wanted to mention about Marilyn that I bet you didn't know is that she was elected as an alternate delegate to Connecticut's Democratic Caucus. And she was elected despite the fact that she was openly very leftist. She was very pro-Castro. She did not hide that. She was already championing the civil rights movement, which was in its infancy. So these were part of her politics that she did not hide, and she was elected as an alternate delegate.
It's wrong, but I understand why filmmakers and writers feel like they have to fill in these blanks because there is just so much modern interest in who she is and who she was, and people just want answers to questions. And once again, a lot of the interest that is garnered for her is because her image is literally plastered everywhere. Stephen Cohen analyzes several Marilyn biopics in his article and notes the gossip about her affairs, abortions, and possible or impossible assassination reinforces her immortality too, because their truthfulness is always disputable and debatable, giving her life story its sense of ongoing currency. There are definitely parts of her story that are true and tragic, like the fact that her mother did have schizophrenia and couldn't take care of her, which put Marilyn in numerous foster homes, the fact that Marilyn had 3 unsuccessful marriages, the fact that she had trouble conceiving and had endometriosis, the fact that she had mental illnesses, the fact that she was basically bullied and exploited by the Hollywood machine, and the fact that she died early at the age of 36. Conkle also notes that...
Right, which is why I think a lot of the fascination of Marilyn pertains to her psychological makeup. And it's why often her political beliefs and also political involvement has been not reported on as much, is not really a focus in the endless Marilyn Monroe biographies, documentaries, films, cultural never-ending cultural fascination with her. This portion of her life, which was very substantial, has been largely left out, which I already explained some reasons as to why I think that's the case, but also because I think people are more fascinated by the psychology of Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn's persona reflects the story of a woman who...
Yeah, and then the fact that she's been so immortalized in part due to the tragedy of her death and the mystery in her life.
Was the damaged famous. The damage of fame includes mental health problems, addictions, and bankruptcy, which evidently draws people closer to the injured celebrity. Thus, Marilyn's series of struggles endeared others to her. People love to see themselves represented in celebrity narratives because I feel like people like to have someone to fixate their issues around. Like they want someone to start the conversation for them when it comes to things that they're internally dealing with. During Marilyn's life, her inability to have a baby was a frequent conversation among fan magazines. One Photoplay article imagined Marilyn saying, which I feel like is just totally inappropriate. But anyways, the article said, "Someday when I grow up, I'm going to have a little girl of my own, and I'm never going to leave her.
Fucking
never,
weird.
Never." Marilyn was a...
Oh my God. Like that fuck ass blonde movie with... Let me just play this for you. If you have never seen this nightmare, Blonde. The fetus scene. Are you ready for this?
You won't hurt me this time, will you? Not do what you did the last time?
If you're going, I'm sorry, hold on a second. Is this the movie Blonde from 2022 starring Ana de Armas as Marilyn Monroe? And this is a scene of Marilyn talking to her imaginary fetus? Yes. Yes, it is.
I didn't mean to. Yes, you meant to. It was your decision. You're not the same baby. You're this baby. That was me. It's always me.
Yeah, this is real. I mean, not obviously something that happened in real life, but real in the movie.
He loves us. He would die for us. He said so.
Fucking nightmare. It is the talking fetus scene. The fact that this movie was Oscar nominated. Imagine putting on your resume that as a kid you voiced a part in the movie Blonde as Marilyn Monroe's fetus. First of all, this is such disgusting, fantastical fictionalization. And second of all, it's so anti-abortion propaganda. This is so disturbing. You cannot believe that this was in this film, but also the entire film is a train wreck. It is a dog shit, truly dog shit movie. A Heritage Foundation-ass type video. Yeah. No shame. The creators should be ostracized from society. What is this weird shit? Yeah. And I remember, I mean, this is the case often, but the early talks around Ana de Armas, potential Oscar path. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Get out. Guys, Anna's a bad actress. She didn't write the movie. Yeah, no. The blame on this needs to be put on the shoulders of Andrew Dominic. You know who produced this movie? Brad Pitt. So we can also blame Brad Pitt. But this was written and directed by Andrew Dominic, who directed Assassination of Jesse James, Killing Them Softly, Chopper. So he's done a lot of like crime thrillers. And he did this one, and it is based on Joyce Carol Oates' novel from 2000. And when I tell you it is that talking fetus scene is but one example of how dog shit the movie overall is. When I tell you it is fucking ass. Fun abortion fact. Ava Gardner got a secret abortion in Europe of Frank Sinatra's baby because he was drinking and abusing her. Good for her getting that abortion.
Essentially a vehicle for these women to talk about their issues when it came to like reproductive health and childbearing. As of very recently, we've seen Kim Kardashian donning 2 of Marilyn's actual dresses. We've seen numerous depictions of Marilyn Monroe in pop culture, whether that be a recreation of her Gentlemen Prefer Blonde sequence or a recreation of her photo shoots. Earlier this year, another Marilyn Monroe documentary came out attempting to reframe her narrative as empowering to reflect her cultural tendency to girl bossify everyone and everything. Marilyn's relevance seems to be ever consistent.
To see a woman that is so in charge of her sexuality as extremely empowering.
This woman is so comfortable in her skin. She was rolling the dice with her career in very real terms.
Generally, I think all of this reframing to make Marilyn like this representation of a movement to push an agenda is...
I gotta say too, I hate the fact that Marilyn's radicalism has kind of been watered down to her being sexually liberated, being so free in expressing her sexuality, which was not also true. That's just not the whole picture here, but that it reduces her still to her sexuality and ignores everything else about her.
Is a disservice and disrespectful to who she was, which is a woman in the 1950s dealing with problems of the 1950s. But at the same time, I think projecting onto Marilyn on a personal level is okay, because that's just like what celebrities are. They're figureheads for people to project onto.
The estate has a lot of interest in portraying her
and
that
to
way.
help make sense of their own lives. It's just about learning how to navigate those things without being disrespectful or like tarnishing the legacy of a real human being. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah, especially because The Misfits was her trying to move away from what she had been typecast as, that she really wanted to show off her dramatic skills, to not be in a role that so heavily fixated on her sexuality, on her being, sexually appealing. And even with The Misfits being a move away from that, as Mina covered in this video, there was still the objectifying quality because it was 1962. Wish we could have seen the kind of person Marilyn transformed into by the 70s. Yeah, I mean, I think she's somebody who would have only become more outspoken in the things she believed in and would have continued to advocate for her own liberation and the liberation of all the all peoples. That was who she was at the end of the day. She was a working class populist. And she would have remained an icon. But it would have been interesting to see how it would have affected her status as an immortal icon, the way that people view Marilyn now, and the cultural legacy and the obsession with Marilyn Monroe, the persona, if that would have diminished had she lived longer, which I do think so, because I think part of the obsession with her is the fact she did die so young. And because there is so much that's been kind of fictionalized about her, but also people projecting onto Marilyn. And I think the way that Marilyn exists in pop culture now would not be the same had she lived longer. Dying young freezes you in time. It does. Yep, that is true. I wonder if she wouldn't have left her IP in her will, how she would be depicted. Yeah. The fact that she died with a net worth of, what was it, 800,000, and pictures of her dog sold for $250,000. Other items of hers selling for millions. Sad she never really got a chance to break away, but I'm glad that we're seeing more recognition that she was more complex and complicated than just the 2D Hollywood trope she was forced into. Yeah, with how much there exists in pop culture around and about Marilyn Monroe, she's still such a misunderstood figure. So I hope that this was illuminating and offered you more insight into who Marilyn was. I haven't eaten all day and somehow my huge bowl of spaghetti just ended up inside down on my couch. Ugh, it's the fucking worst. When you're so excited to eat and it just spills everywhere. I'm surprised Ryan Murphy hasn't made a show about her. Well, don't put that out into the atmosphere because I am sure that is something he would do. Stay away. Get a job that's not what your job is now and stay away from her. Stay away from her. I'm debating covering all this Lego stuff tomorrow, but tomorrow is also primary day. Tomorrow is primary day here in California and I think 5 other states. What states have primaries tomorrow? 6 states. 6 states in total. California, Iowa, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, South Dakota. So obviously the one I'm going to be most tuning into is California. The Lego stuff is very long. Yeah. And I'm not going to lie. I do have a growing headache. Probably because most of what I've consumed today is caffeine. And tomorrow will probably be. I'm just like, I can't imagine that primary coverage is gonna be quick. I guess the thing with the Lego story is that there are daily updates. At this point now, there's 4 or 5 Moist Critical videos. Because of Ben Reckless, who's the YouTuber, started investigating this and now is being targeted by the police and the Church of Latter-day Saints, has been making videos out of everything that's happening. California is notoriously slow counting ballots. Yes, also, I'm in California, so I am in this time zone. So I think tomorrow will still be a late night, even though it will take longer past tomorrow night. What? I've heard 0 about this. Do I live under a rock? 0 about the primaries or the Lego story? The Lego story is one that I've seen gaining steam. I know Ludwig was covering it today. And I've seen more and more people talk about it as awareness is growing around this absolute insane saga. Need to Google that later. Well, I do want to really dive into it, but I also kind of want to call it an early night if y'all don't mind. Pay your fees. Thank you for the 9 months. If y'all don't mind if I skedaddle out of here. The Lego Saga is wildly compelling. Yeah, it is. When I started reading about it, I was like, oh. Guapoco, thank you so much for the 5 gifteds. Thank you. I appreciate that. Did you know Hugh Hefner purchased the grave plot next to Marilyn to be buried next to her? He is the devil. As I said, one day we shall deep dive into Hugh Hefner. I went to college and I was in theater with one of his granddaughters. And I didn't believe it at first because this girl was, I don't know what I thought the granddaughter of Hugh Hefner would be, but certainly not how she was. And then it was confirmed. It was confirmed that she had the same last name. So I was like, okay, this is just the same last name. You tell people you're Hugh Hefner's granddaughter. But she wasn't the kind of person to do that. And I think she was embarrassed by the fact that her grandfather was Hugh Hefner because of what a devil, and not in like a cool devilish way, but evil, awful devil way, Hugh Hefner was. So her dad was his son. Yeah. Yes. I wonder how she's doing now. I think one of his sons was very uninvolved with the Playboy empire. And I think that might be whose father, this girl I did theater with, that was her dad. He had a very private life away from all of it. I heard his son. Well, he's got, I think, 4 kids. That sucks so bad, poor girl. Were you friends with her? Not really. She was younger. And my friends were mostly outside of the theater program. I had two of my best friends I did theater with, and we were a trio, but otherwise my friends were outside of theater. The first episode of the Quantex podcast will be about Hugh Hefner. I know. Ray today was like, why are you not podcasting? And I said, I know. Taco Ninja Dragon, thank you for the 6 months. Crypt near Marilyn Monroe and Hugh Hefner could fetch $400,000 at auction. What if I dug up his body and moved it away from Marilyn? I would go to jail, but y'all could bail me out. Okay, at 8,000 subs, I dig up Hugh Hefner's corpse to get that rotten bag away from Marilyn Monroe, and then I will use the sub money for bail. It's good to have goals. It is good to have goals. This auction, when is this from? March 27, 2024. Okay, so this already happened. A one-space mausoleum crypt in the vicinity of Marilyn Monroe and Hugh Hefner will go on auction Saturday, when it's expected to reach between $200,000 and $400,000. Get away from her! Even in death, men don't leave women alone. Seriously, let her be in peace. Even in death, men not leaving women alone. After Monroe's death in 1962, her ex-husband Joe DiMaggio held a private funeral for her at Westwood Village. Playboy founder Hefner later arranged to be laid to rest in a crypt next to the actor. Spending an eternity next to Marilyn is too sweet to pass up. Oh! He spent $75,000 to secure his spot in 1992. Yuck. Yuck. Ugh. Wasn't there a guy who buried himself face down above Marilyn? I don't know. Oh my God. Leave her alone. Leave my queen alone. Caroline, have you touched on how apparently Marilyn was stinky? Like she had BO? You know what? Good for her. Everything that you can tell me about Marilyn, I'll be like, great. Queen. Good for her. I see no issue. Let women be stinky. And if I were Marilyn, I would probably want to be stinky as well. In the revolution, can we pick Hugh Hefner's grave up and move it somewhere else? Oh yeah, that is going to be the kickoff. That's going to be how we start things. Start off the revolution. Is we dig up Hugh Hefner's corpse and throw him into a dumpster. Sounds like an excellent first line of self-defense. Incinerate him. We don't need to preserve his resting place. That's what I'm saying. I think you could do a compelling podcast without a co-host. Yeah, what's that? What's the podcast? Hidden History? No. No, it's not Hidden History. Why can't I think of the name? LA History Podcast by why can't I? Oh my God, I can't think of this podcast, but it's really, really well done. It's this woman who has been doing this podcast for years at this point, and it's it dives into a lot of the history in Hollywood and in Los Angeles. It's really, really fascinating, and I just simply cannot think of what it's called. To kick off Pride Month, the picture of the goat, always Marsha P. Marsha P. Marsha P. All right, y'all. I'm gonna get out of here. Sorry for it being a short one, but I'll be back tomorrow, and it'll probably be a long one tomorrow. And at some point this week, we will cover all the Lego stuff. Live to cover Lego another day. Exactly. Saved for perfect. Great. Yep. Me saying at 8,000 subs, I'm going to dig up Hugh Hefner's corpse. It's Monday. You know, these are kinds of things you say on a Monday. Thank you for teaching us something new. You are welcome. Happy 100th birthday to the one, the only, Marilyn Monroe. See y'all tomorrow. And if you live in one of the 6 states that I mentioned, you have a primary election tomorrow. But also, if you live in Los Angeles, know the difference between LA City and LA County, because you might think you're voting in the mayoral election that here in Los Angeles we've all been talking about, but depending on where you live, that's not the case. Don't forget to turn in your ballot.